Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about What If Naruto X Mongol Justice League Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Just where the hell were they? The city was beautiful, tall skyscrapers, bright lights, beautiful views, the sounds of life itself as if people moved about. And none of them made any sense to the observer, and for good reason, as these observers in question happened to be not from this world. And at this very moment, he was trying to figure out just what he was going to do now that he was in the city. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha had no idea what they was doing here in this world right now, and while they was still able to remain hidden while they were in one of the alleyways in the city. Everything that the two shinobi were looking at right now was something that they had never seen before, and it was something that made the blonde Hokage and wandering shinobi from Konoha all the more confused by what they were looking at this very moment. The blonde and Uchiha looked about, and the roads were unlike anything they had seen before in his life. The strange metal-looking carts didn't have any horses or people moving them to their destination, and every so often they spotted smoke coming from some sort of pipe that was behind them. There were more of the strange things, and they were of different sizes to boot, as the two of them looked at the things carefully and tried to make some sense of it all. Both Naruto and Sasuke had seen some things like those in their travels in the elemental countries as well as their trip to snow/spring country, but they were nothing like the ones that they was seeing before them right now. And the buildings in places like Iwa, Konoha, Suna, and several others were tall, but there were no buildings this size in all of their travels at all, and this added even more to the confusion that was hitting the two shinobi. Naruto, however, decided that they might as well try to make some sense on what he was doing here in this world that seemed to defy just about everything that he knew of. He and Sasuke began to make their way out of the alley, but they both stopped at the sound of footsteps. The two shinobi turned around to see several muscular men with bird wings coming out of their backs and spears in their hands. "Halt, humans!" one of them shouted. "Show us your identification, or you will face punishment." "We don't have time for this," Sasuke as he waved a few hand signs. "Fire release, dragon flame jutsu," he shouted as he unleashed a dragon head-shaped fireball that blasted all of the aliens out of the alley and across the street. They hit the ground, smoldering and unconscious, but alive. Naruto and Sasuke both looked up to see a ship hanging in the air. It clearly wasn't human, if the birdmen flying protectively around it were any indication. Feeling that they may get some answers there, Naruto, using senjutsu, conjured up a truth-seeking ball that he molded into a platform that he and Sasuke got on. They ascended into the air towards the ship. Betrayed by one of their own, the mighty Justice League were now prisoners to the Thanagarians, thanks to their former friend and ally, Shara the Hawk Girl. Wonder Woman's own unbreakable lasso bound her up tight. Superman was contained a sphere of red sun radiation, draining his power and reducing him to a mere human strength. Flash, the fastest man alive, was pinned by gravity generators that halted his movement. Martian Manhunter was held by metals he couldn't phase through. Batman and Green Lantern, being the only normal humans of the group, were simply caged in handcuffs, although Green Lantern's ring had been confiscated. Throughout the room a sense of betrayal hung heavy on their minds as silence permeated between them. Their contemplative silence was soon broken by the sound of a struggle outside the doors. The pained grunts and cries of Thanagarians got steadily closer before the door to their prison was burst open and the two Thanagarian guards were incapacitated with numerous bruises, bleeding cuts, and even second-degree burns. Before their shock could wear off, two unfamiliar individuals stepped into the room. The first man having short blonde hair and blue eyes, and 3 whisker marks on his cheeks, he wore an orange sweatshirt with black stripes, black pants and sandals. He also wore a white cape that had a red flame pattern around the hem, held together by a red rope. His right arm was completely wrapped in bandages. The second man had black eyes and long black hair that completely covered his left eye. He wore a black cloak with lavender lining, and a gray, long-sleeved, collared shirt, over which he wore a periwinkle vest. He also wore black pants, a purple belt, and dark gray fingerless glove on his right hand, with the other one being completely covered in bandages. "Judging by how you're in those cells, I'm gonna say you're the good guys," the blonde one says, a little flicker of uncertainty in his voice as he hoped he wasn't attacking the wrong people this whole time. Superman looked up at the new arrivals with a flicker of hope and nodded from inside his red prison. "We're the Justice League. We fight to protect the Earth and the people who live on it." "Justice League? What the hell kind of name is that?" Naruto thinks to himself before nodding. "Well, you can call us your allies for now," he replies before moving to Wonder Woman's cell. Upon seeing her, he hoped to high heaven that he wasn't blushing at the sight of her. He shook it off quickly before untying her as more Thanagarians stormed the room. "Free your friends. We'll handle these bastards," he says before he and Sasuke jumped into the fray again, with Naruto covering his hands in chakra and Sasuke enveloping his sword with lightning. As Naruto and Sasuke fought the Thanagarians away, Wonder Woman successfully freed her comrades who then joined in the fray. Between Superman and Wonder Woman's strength, Flash's speed, Martian Manhunter's shape-shifting, and the tenacity of both Batman and Green Lantern, the Thanagarians were swiftly defeated. However, that all changed as a particularly rotund Thanagarian entered bearing a cannon. "Ah crap, look out!" Naruto said as all the heroes avoided the blow of the cannon, which promptly left a hole in the wall of the vessel, exposing the city below. Before another shot could be fired, Superman destroyed the cannon and knocked out their assailant. "Let's move," Superman said as Naruto and Sasuke flew out first on their platform. Superman grabbed Batman as Martian Manhunter helped Green Lantern and Wonder Woman flew Flash out. "You know, it's possible, and I could be wrong here," Flash started, "but I think that these guys are on our side." To the surprise and relief of both Shinobi and the League, they encountered no other Thanagarian forces during their escape. However, with the threat looming, they decided it was safer to duck inside a nearby clothing store. Once inside, the League turned to address Superman. "That X-ray vision working again?" Lantern asked Superman, who nodded. "Just enough to see that we are surrounded by Thanagarian forces," the Kryptonian replies. "X-ray vision, super strength, and flight? How powerful is this guy?" Naruto thought to himself, before noticing 6 pairs of eyes land on him and Sasuke. "So, what's the plan now?" Naruto asked the assembled League. "Sit tight and hope they go away?" Flash suggested before receiving glares of irritation from the others. "What? A little optimism couldn't hurt," he defends. Almost as in reply to his suggestion, a booming announcement was made by the Thanagarian forces. "This is the voice of the Thanagarian Occupational Authority. The Justice League are escaped prisoners and violators of our martial law. They are to be considered an enemy, and dealt with on sight. Any person or persons found aiding or harboring them will be summarily punished." "Optimism, eh?" Naruto asked as Flash slumped in response. "Something like that, yeah?" Batman, meanwhile, took the chance to speak. "We're going to have to underground for the time being. Keep low and rethink our plan of attack." "How exactly do we hide when the whole city is looking for us?" Wonder Woman asked quizzically. "Not to mention that your costumes don't exactly scream subtlety," Sasuke adds. "He is correct," Martian Manhunter says as he draws the others' attention away from their new ally to examine a nearby coat. "They are looking for our costumes. But without them," he says before shifting into a man wearing an exact copy of that brown coat. "We are ordinary citizens." "Whoa, wait a second," Flash interjected quickly. "What about the whole secret identity thing? I mean, I trust you guys, but what about them?" he asked before jerking a thumb to Naruto and Sasuke. Naruto sighed slightly and shook his head. He figured that they might not trust them, since they're only just meeting each other. As such, he decided to make the first introduction. "It's okay, you don't have to worry about us. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and this is my friend Sasuke Uchiha," he says with a friendly smile, while Sasuke just gave a simple nod in response. Then, shocking everyone in the League, Batman removed his cowl to revealing black hair and piercing eyes. Bruce Wayne. Flash is Wally West. Superman is Clark Kent. Green Lantern is John Stewart. "And you know Diana and John," he says as he points to each corresponding member. Within a few minutes, the entire League was now in civilian guise, ready to attempt a journey in the open. After exiting into the alley they entered the store through, Bruce checked outside to make sure that the coast was clear before they proceeded. "We need to split up. They expect 8 of us," Green Lantern pointed out. "We need to get to Gotham City. We can regroup at my house. Try not to draw attention to yourselves," Bruce states. "I'll go with Diana and Sasuke," he adds as the others nod. "I'll go with Naruto. I can show them the way over," Wally says as Naruto nods. "Lead the way." Shira Hull, formerly known as the heroine Hawkgirl, listened with growing disdain as she talked to her beloved Hro Talik, leader of the Thanagarian army. After having overheard a conversation between him and another Thanagarian about the project, she had more than a few pressing questions, specifically about using the people of Earth as slave labor to build their device. Talik's response, however, shook her to her core. "We are on a most unforgiving schedule. We must move as quickly as possible if we want to finish the hyperspace bypass in time," he said plainly, revealing the true nature of his plan to her. Shira's eyes widened in shock at this revelation. "Bypass? I thought we were creating a force field around Earth." "That was simply our cover story," Hro said in reply as Shira immediately stopped to think of the implications of this. "Follow me," he urged as she walked with him down to the war room of the ship they were on. Once inside, Hro brought her to a large screen that held their battle strategies and tactics. As you are well aware, the Gordanian homeworld has been protected for decades by an impenetrable defensive line. He starts as the screen shifts to show the Gordanian homeworld surrounded by a massive blockade of warships, but this chain of hyperspace bypasses will allow the full force of our armada to go around their defenses by jumping behind them, which will let us wage a direct assault on the heart of their empire. Despite the sheer strategic brilliance of the plan, Shara was still unsure. Earth is the last link in the chain. Once we finish it, we can finally attack and annihilate the threat of the Gordanians forever, Hro said happily while Shara was still dismayed by his words. But ripping a hole in hyperspace will destroy this entire planet, and everyone on it, she says in protest as Hro nodded grimly, revealing the toll that this war had taken on him. Unfortunately, yes, he says with slight sorrow in his voice. For Thangar to live, Earth must die. Outskirts of Metropolis. As Sasuke, Bruce and Diana made their way out of Metropolis, the billionaire and princess each took the time to think about Sasuke. Bruce was thinking about the ramifications that Sasuke's power might have on the world, while Diana wanted to get to know her new ally better. Maybe she could get him to talk about himself a little more. At the very least, she would learn a little more about him. Sasuke? The Uchiha looked up at the princess, the same neutral expression on his face. Yes? I was wondering if you could tell me a little more of your powers. Diana glanced at Bruce. It might help us fight alongside you better. Sasuke stared at Diana questionably for a few moments. He didn't think that he should tell them about chakra as the Uchiha felt he couldn't fully trust them yet. So he just told them what they needed to hear. Super strength, super speed, flight, invulnerability, and elemental abilities, the list goes on. He gave a small smirk. It's really a question of what abilities I don't have. Both of the older heroes were shocked. If what he said was true, then Sasuke and possibly Naruto both had more power than the entire league. Sasuke looked up at Bruce. So, are you the only one without any powers? That had actually made Sasuke kind of curious. All of these people were faster or stronger than any human. In fact, 2 of them weren't human at all. Bruce nodded. Is that unusual for you? Not at all. I recall a time where I was unable to use my abilities without doing harm to myself, so I had to rely on my own skills and training in order to defeat my opponent, but all in all, I was just lucky to have won that fight, Sasuke replied, referring to his battle with Yoroi during the Chunin exams. Bruce was a little impressed. Not many people could so easily admit to being powerless, nor could they admit to only winning by luck. Diana, however, had another question. How is it that we have never heard of you and your comrade? Someone of your power should have been seen before, especially if you've been doing this since you were 10. Sasuke only shrugged. Probably because me and Naruto are not from this universe. Both Bruce and Diana froze. Well, that was certainly unexpected. Sasuke continued. And before you ask how I know we're from another universe, there's no Justice League where I come from, no Thanagarian invasion, no Metropolis, and no Gotham City. Frankly, all of this is entirely unknown to me. Bruce nodded, then gestured to Diana that they needed to keep moving. They would decide on how to proceed regarding Naruto and Sasuke later, provided they survived the Thanagarians. Before either of them knew it, they had arrived at the fabled Wayne Manor. Despite the Flash being the fastest man alive, he and Naruto were the last pair to arrive at Wayne Manor. After approaching the door, they were immediately let in by an aging butler who had introduced himself as Alfred Pennyworth. Alfred then led them to a grandfather clock, which opened up to reveal a staircase down into a large cavern, the Batcave. As Naruto and Flash descended down to where the others were gathered, they looked around in astonishment at everything they saw: a giant penny, costumes of all shapes and sizes, and even a Tyrannosaurus. Your late Batman stated plainly, as Naruto shrugged. Meanwhile, Flash had finally seen the large Tyrannosaur. Hey, that's a giant dinosaur. And I thought Batman was the detective, Alfred said plainly as Naruto smirked at the butler's joke. We were just speculating why the Thanagarians are really here, John said to bring the new arrivals up to speed. Obviously not to protect us, Superman states. But if the Gordanians aren't anywhere near Earth, Wonder Woman started, why do they need to build that force field? If it is a force field, Batman states, his famous call now back on. I can tell you what it is. The owner of the new voice, Shara Holt, traitor to the Justice League, stepped from the shadows as the 7 got into battle stances. You've got a lot of nerve showing up here, Clark says menacingly as he removed his glasses. We should thank you. It saves us the trouble of hunting you down, Wonder Woman added. Before anyone else could say more, Sasuke suddenly appeared in front of Sheira with his sword held to her throat. Sheira meanwhile put her hands up in surrender. I didn't come to fight. I came to help. Hawk people all over the planet? Martial law? I don't think we need any more of your help, Flash said as he crossed his arms. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't rip those wings off right now, Naruto added as Sheira stepped forward slowly. Sheira looked at Sasuke with a pleading look in her eye. He lowered his sword first, but before he lowered it completely, he said coldly to her, "Make a wrong move, and I won't hesitate to kill you." Then he let her go. Sheira stared at him for a moment, then turned to the League. They're building a hyperspace bypass. When it's active, it'll destroy the planet and everyone on it, she says plainly before handing Batman a disc with the schematics. This has all the information on the project. Believe me, I didn't know the magnitude of Talek's plan, she says in her defense amidst the glares. We'll check it out. There's the door, Batman said bluntly as he took the disc from her. Sheira, meanwhile, walked away calmly, ignoring the others as they avoided eye contact with her. Naruto, however, watched her carefully. He didn't trust her to not backstab his new friends. Friends, were they even his friends? He did, however, notice Sheira give John a ring before leaving. What's the ring do? Naruto asked as John smirked in response, putting the ring on before floating a few feet off of the ground. Okay, that's pretty sweet, Naruto admits before turning back to the Bat computer. Playing on the screen was a simulation of the bypass in action. They watched as the simulation's Earth was consumed by a white crackling light as the bypass activated. Ingenious, Batman muttered absent-mindedly. Yeah, I'm impressed. Let's go wreck it, Superman says as he takes off his glasses again, getting in costume. The bypass is too dangerous to have a crew maintaining the force field that protects it on site, Batman says as he types away at his keyboard. They must be keeping the device powering the force field on the command ship over Mongolia, he continues as he finishes typing. After he did so, an image of the Thanagarian flagship was brought up, and he highlighted a particular section of it. He then turns to the League before standing up. Go shut it down. I'll take care of the bypass. That thing's the size of a city. What are you gonna do? Throw a batarang at it? Flash asks skeptically. Something like that, Batman replies before looking to the computer screen. Proximity sensors were just triggered. Suit up. The heroes all quickly returned to their costumes as Naruto cracked his knuckles and Sasuke unsheathed his sword. They all looked to the entrance briefly before getting into position among the shadows of the cave to ambush the intruders. Just as they hid, the doors to that lead back into Wayne Manor exploded inwards as several heavily armed Thanagarian soldiers stormed into the cave. Spread out, the leader said. They're hiding somewhere in here. Just as he said that, a green blade sliced through their only cannons, destroying them. Who's hiding, bird brain? Naruto quips with a smirk as he knocks two Thanagarians back with a vicious backhand. Come and get some, Green Lantern said as he took off in a flash of emerald light, dodging the Thanagarians' attacks as he fired beams of energy down at them before they could retaliate. Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter worked in tandem with a lasso to knock them out in droves as Flash ran through as many as he could with his super speed. One Thanagarian attempted to aim a pistol at the speedster but soon cried out in pain as Superman crushed both his hand and the pistol he was holding. Let's use our inside voice, shall we? He remarked before punching the Thanagarian into a wall. Sasuke dispatched a couple of Thanagarians almost effortlessly with his swordsmanship skills, with the Thanagarians lying on the ground with numerous lacerations on their bodies. Naruto then knocked two towards the Flash, who spun a small tornado with his hands to knock them into the giant penny Bruce kept in the Batcave. The penny then promptly fell over onto the two of them, knocking them out cold. Tails. I win, Flash jokes. After a few more brief minutes of fighting, the amassed heroes had defeated their foes and walked out of the Batcave and back into Wayne Manor. Alfred was calmly sweeping up the debris from what remained of the front windows off of the floor. Mind the glass, sir, he warned calmly as the heroes walked outside. As soon as they were outside, Batman turned to address Green Lantern. I want you, Superman, Wonder Woman, Naruto, and Sasuke to go to the command ship and shut down the force field. And the rest of us? John asked. You're gonna help me retake the watchtower, Batman states. Both shinobi nodded, with Naruto remembering Flash mentioned something about the League having an orbiting space station. It's crawling with Thanagarian soldiers. How are you planning on getting inside? Flash asked skeptically. With that, Batman replied bluntly as he pointed to the ship that the Thanagarians had arrived in. The assembled members all nodded before they split up into their respective groups to complete their missions. Batman sat in the cockpit of the ship as Flash and John examined the controls. Once they finished, Batman turned to face Martian Manhunter. Well? I have no idea how to fly this vessel, the Martian replied. What does this button do? Flash asked before pressing a button on the console, causing a beam of energy to fire out from the ship which makes a large hole in the side of Bruce's mansion. That's not helping, Batman seethed, mere inches from Flash's face. John, however, had a sudden idea. I need one of the Hawkmen. Batman and Flash nodded before going outside and dragging an unconscious Thanagarian inside the ship. The Thanagarian's name was Kreger, and he happened to be one of Hro Talek's chief advisors. Kreger, however, sneered at them. You think I'll tell you anything? I'd sooner choke on your bones. Flash smirked in response as he cracked his knuckles. Fine by me. Can I start with these? He says before John holds his fist back. We're running out of time. I'll take the information from him. I thought you couldn't read their minds, Flash said curiously. John merely grasped Kreger's head tight as his eyes glowed orange. I'll just have to try harder, he announced in a dangerous tone as he began to probe Kreger's mind. While Batman and Flash could not see what John had to go through in Kreger's mind, the stress that was placed on John was suddenly evident as he received several physical injuries to match the mental strain that his efforts put on him. His cape was shredded to ribbons and various wounds appeared all over his body before he finally released Kreger, causing the Thanagarian to fall limply to the floor. I have what we need, the Martian said breathlessly as he panted in exhaustion. It was clear that he put a great deal of effort into obtaining the necessary information. After unceremoniously dumping Kreger on the ground outside, the shuttle took off towards the watchtower. Alfred had since walked outside to continue his cleanup, and saw Kreger lying limply on the ground. With his blank, expressionless face and slick of drool in the corner of his mouth, it was safe to say that John's attack had left the Thanagarian comatose. Alfred snorted indignantly as he saw Kreger's form. I'll have to ask Master Bruce not to leave trash in the yard. Early into the flight, John assumed Kreger's form, and as they approached the watchtower he began sending a transmission to the tower. Shuttle Epsilon 16, requesting entry, John said, imitating the Thanagarian's voice perfectly. After a brief moment of silence a response came through. Docking code confirmed. You are clear to come aboard, a voice replied as the watchtower's docking bay opened its doors for the shuttle. Once landed inside, John walked down the ramp of the shuttle, still in disguise, as several Thanagarians approached him. We weren't expecting you, sir, one Thanagarian remarked in surprise as he watched Kreger descend into view. There's been a change of plans, John replies as he suddenly shifts into a large monster and knocked the guards aside. Several more Thanagarians charged into the room but were summarily beaten by the combined might of Batman and Flash, joining the fray alongside their Martian friend. In the skies above the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, the other 5 heroes were approaching the flagship of the Thanagarian fleet. Inside were the controls to the force field generator that protected the hyperspace bypass. Wonder Woman took the lead position as Green Lantern and Superman took up the rear, with Naruto in his Sage of Six Paths mode carrying Sasuke on one of his platforms. However, their approach did not go entirely unnoticed as a fleet of Thanagarian ships began to swarm towards them. Pretty bad odds, Wonder Woman commented bluntly. For them. Not so much us, Naruto replied. Superman agreed. Yeah. They don't stand a chance. To say it was a battle would have been a lie. It was a beatdown. Naruto, Superman, and Wonder Woman simply flew through the fighters, their enhanced durability allowing them to be unaffected by the impacts, while leaving a trail of falling wreckage behind them. Green Lantern and Sasuke took down any stragglers, the energy attacks used by both Sasuke's Chidori and Green Lantern's power ring easily cutting through the metal of the fighters. Most of the fighter pilots saw Naruto, Superman, and Wonder Woman as greater threats, and focused their attacks on them. Nobody on the outside seemed to notice Green Lantern cut his way through the hull of the flagship and make his way inside. Watchtower. After a few short minutes, Batman, Flash, and Martian Manhunter had defeated all of the Thanagarians on the watchtower, and were now standing over the bodies of the last of them. Okay, the watchtower is ours again. Now where's your secret weapon? Flash asked Batman as he watched the Caped Crusader type furiously into the keyboard. You're standing in it. Wait, you mean we're gonna take the watchtower out of orbit and drop it on top of their little science project? Batman finishes as he looks at John and the shell-shocked Flash. Get them into escape pods. The engines on the watchtower quickly locked onto the coordinates of the bypass as the 3 heroes rounded up every Thanagarian on the station. Once Flash had used his speed to retrieve the last of them, he and John walked with Batman to the remaining pod. Are these the last of them? John asks. Yep, Flash responds with a satisfied smile. The tower is completely pest-free. Good, Batman said in a resigned tone as he pressed the launch button to the pod, leaving himself behind as he launched Flash and John to safety. What are you doing? John demanded in a panicked tone as he and Flash crowded around the communicator. I can't risk having the watchtower burn up on reentry. I'll have to guide it in manually, he says before pausing. Then he gave the smallest of smiles. Gentlemen, it's been an honor. Flash and John simply bowed their heads in response, knowing the fate Batman resigned himself to. The Caped Crusader had just sacrificed himself for the world. Once inside the ship, Superman and Wonder Woman split off from John. John had gone on a blasting spree through the lower decks of the ship, swiftly striking any and all Thanagarians that got in his way as he searched for the control room. However, his little jaunt was not going unnoticed. Through the security cameras, Talek watched Green Lantern from the bridge of the ship. He gritted his teeth as he watched. He had stolen the heart of Shayera Hull, which in turn led her to warning the Justice League of Talek's plans and her returning the ring to him. That treason ensured that she was trapped in the brig of the ship. However, once he saw where the lantern was heading, he truly began to see red. Intruder alert! All security teams to engineering! A deck officer cried into a communicator. Talek turned around quickly. Belay that! Green Lantern is mine! He seethed before striding to the door, his battle axe gripped tightly in his hand. Once he had left the bridge, the cameras then showed Naruto and Sasuke sneaking on board the ship and rendezvousing with Wonder Woman and Superman. I'm heading outside to keep the heat off us. Keep working towards the controls, the Man of Steel said before flying out as Naruto, Sasuke, and Wonder Woman observed the branching hallways in front of them. You ready? Wonder Woman asked confidently as Naruto covered his hands in Senjutsu Chakra and Sasuke activated his Sharingan. You bet. How about you go left and I go right? Most birds beaten is the winner, he smirks as the Amazon laughs. You're on, she said in reply before giving a battle cry and charging down her hallway with her sword in hand. Time to kick some ass! Naruto cried as both shinobi quickly ran down the other hall. The Thanagarians in their way stood no chance. While the Thanagarians were fierce opponents in their own right, Wonder Woman was still finding little trouble in defeating them, even if they outnumbered her by as many as 8-1. As she stormed into the brig of the ship, she found that only one cell was occupied. Beyond the bars and energy field of the cell door, Shayera Hull sat inside, her head hung low in a mixture of resignation, remorse, and defeat. Despite their once close friendship, Shayera's betrayal had shattered everything they once held dear, as she betrayed them to the Thanagarians. Amazons didn't take kindly to traitors. I should leave you to burn, the Amazon growled, her voice dripping with hatred and malice. Then, she raised her sword and slashed through the controls to the cell, freeing Shayera as the bars withdrew into the wall, and the barrier shimmered before disappearing. As quickly as she entered, Wonder Woman left, and Shayera slowly stepped out and grabbed a fallen mace. After a few brief seconds of hesitation, she flew off towards the shield controls. Time to make this right, she thinks to herself. Destroying the force field controls was not as easy as Green Lantern had anticipated it would have been. He expected to see resistance, and he had expected it to be guarded. However, what he had not expected was Talek himself, guarding it personally. They quickly exchanged blows, one after the other, Lantern's ring blasts being easily deflected and destroyed by Talek's battle axe. Talek glared darkly at the Lantern as they forced their own weapons in a deadlock against each other. This won't be like the last time you took something that belonged to me, he seethed, referring to Shayera, and how she and John had fallen in love while she was on Earth. Lantern's eyes narrowed in response. Shayera may have betrayed them and the Earth, but he still loved her. And he would not stand to hear her being spoken of as if she were a trophy to be won. Anything I took was freely offered to me. Maybe you should take better care of your stuff, John retorted before jumping back and firing several successive blasts, then creating a shield to stop Talek's axe from striking him as the Thanagarian general attacked him without mercy. The shield, however, would not stand up to much more abuse, and so John attempted to dodge blows instead of countering them. Talek managed to get one lucky shot in, knocking John into some machinery, which promptly detonated, injuring the Green Lantern further. Talek stalked over, smirking triumphantly at the fallen hero before grasping him by the throat and lifting him into the air. I've beaten you, little man. Any last words? He asked, axe poised to kill John at a moment's notice. John gathered the last of his strength as his ring glowed. Yeah, you can kiss my axe. He shouts before putting his energy into an axe and swinging it at Talek. The warriors exchanged blows, each attempting to overpower the other. Naruto was gaining headway as he continued down the hall. The Thanagarians weren't that much of a physical threat to him in any way. He was briefly taken out of his concentration, however, when a few Thanagarian soldiers were knocked past him from the hallway just ahead. He smiled and walked forwards, expecting to see Diana, but was surprised to see another Thanagarian fighting her brethren. He snapped out of his shock quickly as he recognized her. "Hey wait, you're Shara, aren't you?" he asks, as she turns to face him. "Yeah, that's me," she says simply as Naruto nods. "What the hell are you doing? I thought you were with them." "No, not after I saw what they were doing. What Hro was planning to do, it was too much," she says sadly as she looks to the borrowed mace she was using. "I want to help, to atone for what I've done. I might not be able to repair all the damage I caused, but I'd like to start here. If you're gonna help, lead me to the Watchmacalet force field controls." John went on ahead, but he might need some help. "Right," she says before starting ahead. However, Naruto grabbed her arm before she got far. "If you even think about backstabbing me," he starts as he held a kunai in his hand, "you'd better pray to Kami that you kill me quickly," Naruto says darkly as she nods in understanding, and leads him down to the controls. Mere minutes after they started off, Naruto and Shara arrived at the doors to the control room. After a few solid hits from Naruto's chakra-enhanced fists, they opened the door to see Hro Talak beating John senseless. Hro gave one last swing of his axe, shattering the lantern's arm with the flat of it, as John cried out in pain. Talak then delivered an uppercut that sent John across the room, but before he could make the killing blow, Shara stepped forwards. "Hro, enough!" she called as he turned his attention to Naruto, and then to Shara, who continued to walk towards him. "The fight's over. You're a soldier, not a murderer," she says softly as Hro paused. Then, without warning, he delivered a vicious backhand, knocking her next to John. "I was a fool for ever loving you," he shouted before Naruto growled and launched forwards, striking him in the nose, causing blood to gush out. "Alright, you bastard, you've had your fun. Now prepare to get your ass beat," Naruto shouts before punching Talak in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him, and he then kicked him in the chest, sending him hurtling to the ground. Hro grunted in frustration as got back up and flailed uselessly at Naruto, attempting in vain to hit the blonde shinobi, but Naruto would just evade Hro's strikes with no effort at all. "I've got him busy, shut down the controls," Naruto calls out as he continued his relentless assault on the Thanagarian commander. Shara slowly helped John to his feet before they both nodded to the blonde Hokage. It was time to put a stop to the Thanagarian's plan, once and for all. The watchtower was finally entering into the Earth's atmosphere, and Batman was struggling to ensure that the massive space station stayed on course as it approached the bypass thousands of feet below. He activated the comlink before returning to his steering. "Superman, we're cutting it a little close," he grunts as he avoids pieces of the station crumbling around him on the reentry. "Have you disabled the force field?" After a minute, Superman answered the Caped Crusader, finally having found an opening to talk as he destroyed another Thanagarian ship with his heat vision. "Not yet. Where are you?" "I'm on the watchtower, guiding it to target," Batman states simply as he continues to steer it with some effort. Superman immediately blanched at the news. "That's insane. Get out of there," he replied in a shocked tone, worried for his friend's safety. "Negative. I'm staying," Batman replied to him before the reentry caused too much interference for them to keep the communications open. "Batman!" the Man of Steel shouted before rocketing off to the approaching watchtower, desperate to reach his friend before it was too late. Talak panted in fatigue as he continued to swipe at the evading shinobi uselessly, vainly attempting to injure the seventh Hokage. The only thing that infuriated him more than how he couldn't hurt this hero was that the hero refused to do any serious damage. Did he think that the great General Hro Talak was simply not worth his time? The sheer impudence infuriated him. "Not going to kill me? Are you too scared to bloody your hands?" Hro taunts as Naruto shakes his head. "No, I'm not too scared. It would just be too easy. Besides, you don't deserve the honor," he states before forming a Rasengan and slammed it into the Thanagarian's chest, sending a severely injured Hro Talak slamming into a wall, where he then slid to the floor in an almost cartoonish fashion. After checking to see that he wasn't dead, but still not a threat, Naruto turned around. "Any luck over there?" he asks as the two heroes nodded, pulling the lever down and deactivating the field. "There, it's over," John says, panting hard as Shara continued to support him as he stood. Flaming wreckage of the watchtower plummeted to earth as the watchtower itself, little more than a burning husk of its former self, continued its rapid descent. Inside, Batman forced himself to stay conscious as the watchtower was in the final leg of its approach to the bypass. The computer, which had survived the flames of reentry and remained operational, showed that the trajectory of the station was invariably going to strike its intended target head-on. Once the final resting place of the station was guaranteed, Batman finally allowed himself to ease and fall back into unconsciousness. Fortunately for him, Superman burst into the station and quickly grabbed his ally before exiting the station at the last possible second as it struck the bypass, producing a massive crater, several kilometers across. At the sound of the detonation, Batman opened his eyes slowly before looking at the Man of Steel. Always have to be the hero, don't ya? He quips with a small smirk as Superman chuckles. Right back at you, he quips back tiredly. From the control room aboard the flagship, Naruto watched the Justice League station strike the bypass, detonating both structures entirely. John and Shiera give a tired smile before Shiera sighs and looks down. She betrayed her entire race to save the world, Naruto thinks to himself as he frowns before walking over to her and placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Before he can say anything, however, they were interrupted by several Thanagarians storming the control room. Naruto jumped into a defensive position as the other two gave their best attempt to join him, their fatigue clearly hampering them for the approaching battle. However, before they could charge, a door on the opposite side of the room burst open and several battle-damaged Thanagarians collapsed on the floor. Then, following her downed opponents was a bruised, yet unbroken Wonder Woman who gave a battle cry fueled by adrenaline and rage, and also a rather unfazed Sasuke who walked in with his sword covered in the blood of numerous Thanagarians. "Who's next?" she cried as she drew her sword again, and the Thanagarian soldiers quickly moved to attack her and Sasuke. A bloody, bruised, and nearly beaten to a pulp Pro-Talic, however, stood up and halted their approach immediately. "Stand down. Lower your weapons," he says in a defeated tone as he clutched his broken ribs, the soldiers quickly obeying his orders as they lowered their own weapons. "Commander?" one asked in confusion as Rose sighed. "Our mission is a failure. There is no more reason to fight. Let them continue," he laments as Thanagarian and hero alike watch him incredulously. Ro looks to Shiera before scowling. "I hope you're proud of yourself. It'll take years for us to rebuild elsewhere." "Then you'd better get started," Shiera said bluntly and in an unflinching tone as she stared down the Thanagarian general. Then, she helped John out of the room as Wonder Woman, Naruto, and Sasuke followed close behind. No one made any move to stop them. After the remaining Thanagarians had retreated and vacated the planet, the Justice League reconvened back at Wayne Manor with Shiera in tow. After a brisk night's sleep, the 6 founders of the League went into a dining room to hold a meeting as Naruto, Sasuke, and Shiera waited outside on a couch. Since Shiera had betrayed them, she had been dismissed from engaging in any important League functions, and the 2 shinobi weren't actual League members, so they were politely asked to wait outside. In order to pass the time, the 3 started channel surfing on one of the many large TVs in Wayne Manor. Every channel was showing the same footage of how Naruto, Sasuke, and the Justice League had defeated the Thanagarians, and after a few hours it began to grate on their patience. After a few more minutes, Shiera turned it off and sighed as she shifted uncomfortably and looked down at her feet. "They've been in there for a while, huh?" "Yeah, they have. Maybe it's just taking them a while to reach a decision," Naruto shrugs, referring to how the League was discussing Shiera's fate after she had betrayed them, and then had change of heart to help them. Shiera sighed as she leaned back on the couch and readjusted her shirt for what seemed like the millionth time that day. Since her regular clothes had been destroyed along with the watchtower, Bruce had given her some temporary, albeit ill-fitting, clothes. As such, she was now wearing jeans and a white t-shirt with 2 holes cut away on the back to let her wings out. "Listen, I know you're worried about what their decision will be, but you gotta have faith in them," Naruto says as he looks to Shiera with a small, yet confident smile. "If they really are your friends, they'll forgive you." "Forgive me?" she scoffs. "After what I've done?" "Yes. Believe me, I know what this situation is like firsthand," Sasuke spoke up. "How so?" Shiera asks, suddenly intrigued. "Well," Sasuke starts as he turns to face her. "I used to be a criminal. A very dangerous one. I had defected from my village and was determined to destroy it for everything it had done to my clan." Shiera said nothing but continued to listen intently. "It wasn't until this dope here beat me senseless that I saw the error in my ways, and with a good word from my teammates, and sensei from my world, I was able to avoid execution. Yes, we're not from this world," he admits, as Shiera's eyes widened at these revelations. "After I did, I started to make amends. Little things at first, but afterwards I received my pardon. Countless crimes, and yet they still forgave me. And I was considered a war hero." "Even after all you'd done? Fighting them countless times, and trying to kill them who knows how much, they forgave you?" "Yes, I mean it took a lot of time and dedication. And I had to work really damn hard to earn their trust to even be considered for a pardon, but in the end I got it. From what I've seen of the League, I know that they'll forgive you." Shiera nodded but still looked unsure as she returned to looking at the floor. "Hey," Naruto says before putting a gentle hand on her shoulder. Even if they don't believe you're a hero, to the rest of us, you will always be one. Shira smiled softly in response, seeing Naruto, Sasuke, and Alfred give her reassuring smiles, making her feel at least a little better. Inside the meeting, despite the time they had spent conversing and looking over the issue at hand, they were no closer to a decision than they were when they started earlier that morning. Wonder Woman in particular had been spending most of her time in the debate yelling blindly about Shira's betrayal. In fact, she had begun to over her own points multiple times. She exploited our weaknesses, betrayed us, she continued to rant as Flash put up his hands to get her to stop. Come on, she was in the ultimate no-win situation. But when push came to shove, she came through for us, just like always, Flash said in her defense, wanting to stick up for his friend no matter what. John nodded in agreement as he addressed the others. She is a pariah to her people now. We are all she has left. Believe me, John, I feel for her, Superman says before shaking his head slowly and looking down. But after everything that's happened, I honestly don't know if I can ever completely trust her again, he admits sadly. Green Lantern shook his head, having not uttered a word since their discussion began, his right arm in a cast after his battle with Ro. We're arguing in circles, Batman said plainly before commanding their attention. It's time to take a vote. Excuse me, Miss Hole, Alfred says kindly as he enters the room. They've sent for you, he tells her as she stands and nods, while both Naruto and Sasuke stands next to her. Thank you, Alfred, she replies as the aging butler nods and leaves. Then she turns to Sasuke before hugging him. Thanks for the pep talk. No problem. I hope everything works out for you, he says as she nods and walks towards the dining room. She grabbed the handle and hesitates slightly, before finally entering and addressing the League. All 6 members of the League were standing in a line, shoulder to shoulder, as they all looked to her with their own expressions and feelings towards the situation at hand. Superman clears his throat and steps forwards. Hawkgirl, he began as she raised her hand to cut him off mid-sentence. Before you start, I have something to say, she starts before taking a breath to continue. I came to this planet as a patriot. I had a mission and I carried it out. What I couldn't know was that I would come to care for the Earth and her people. As she spoke, she looked at each of the League members. Wonder Woman shot her a look of contempt as Batman simply narrowed his eyes. Not all of them gave her such harsh looks, however. Green Lantern's eyes softened before he looked away. That I'd come to care for all of you. She stops to swallow a lump in her throat before continuing. I've spent the last 5 years torn between my feelings and my duty. I won't ask you to do the same, she says, regaining her nerve slightly as she stood up straight. Therefore I am resigning from the Justice League. Effective immediately. With that, she turns and walks to the door, leaving her ex-teammates behind, stunned expressions on their faces. Flash regained his composure the fastest before rushing forwards and hugging her gently. She returned it before slowly letting go and leaving the room, not once looking back as she went outside. Great Flash sighed as his arms drooped to his sides. No Hawkgirl, no Javelin, no Watchtower. What's gonna happen to the League now? Do we just all walk away? No, John said as he shakes his head. We rebuild. Starting today. John is right. Earth still needs us, and we'll never let her down. It's our duty, Superman agrees as he turns to the others. The 2 shinobi both watch Shira walk out as Naruto sighed and looks down at his feet. He and Sasuke may have known Shira for the least amount of time out of everyone in the League, but he still thought well of her. He didn't want her to just up and leave everything, but if she did need to leave, he wasn't going to stop her. Good luck, he calls to her as she stops in her tracks briefly, before regarding him. After giving him a brief smile, she continues walking out of the mansion. Before they can even sit down again, Alfred approaches Naruto and puts a gentle hand on his shoulder. Excuse me, sirs, but they're ready for you now, he says as Naruto and Sasuke both nodded. Thanks, Alfred, Naruto says before they both walked into the dining room where the League was waiting for them. After leaving the mansion, Shira had walked over to the cliffside and was looking out over the ocean, her arms folded across her chest as she held them close to her body. As she gazed out at the water, she heard footsteps approaching her from behind. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. You never asked how we voted, John says in a quiet voice as he looks at her sadly. She turns to look at him, opening her mouth before closing it and looking down at the ground. Then she shook her head gently. It doesn't matter. So where are you gonna go? John asks as he steps forward slowly. I don't know, she shrugs before looking back up at him. Somewhere where the fate of the world isn't in my hands. Someplace where there are no more secrets. No more lies. Was it all a lie? He asked sadly as she walked up to him, placing a gentle hand on his cheek. I love you, John. I never lied about that, she said, giving him a sad smile as she stared into his eyes. After a moment, she removed her hand from his face before turning back around and opening her wings as she flew off into the sunset. John watched her leave, his eyes rising and falling with each beat of her wings until she was too far on the horizon to see. Then, once she was gone, he finally released the tears that he had kept inside up until that moment. "I love you too," he whispered softly. After reluctantly watching Shira leave, Naruto and Sasuke both had entered into the dining hall where the remaining members of the League had returned to their seats around the table. John, however, was noticeably absent. Probably going to look for Shira before she leaves, Naruto thought to himself, before being called out of his own thoughts as Superman clears his throat. "First of all, Naruto and Sasuke, we'd like to thank you both for all your help. Without your assistance, I don't know what we would have done," the Man of Steel began as the two ninja both gave a small smile in return. "Hey, it was no trouble at all," Naruto shrugs as Superman smiles in return. "However, there are a few questions we have to ask of you, if you wouldn't mind answering." "Of course. Ask away," he says simply as he takes a seat across the table from where Superman was. "First, we would like to know how you both managed to get on the prison ship. Secondly, we'd like to know why we have never heard of you two before. We're aware of several heroes and their activities all over the globe, so the way you've all managed to stay under the radar for so long has us fairly puzzled," Clark asked with a curious glance as the others, aside from Batman and Wonder Woman, who knew the whole truth, nodded in agreement. "Well, to answer your first question, we both snuck through an opening in the side. We're experts at being covert." Naruto shrugs. "As for the other question, would you mind if we sat down? This might take a while." Superman then gestured to a couple of chairs across from him on the table. Once seated, Naruto cleared his throat. "Now, Sasuke told me he gave the full story to Batman and Wonder Woman already, but here it goes," he starts as the League watches him carefully. He took a short breath before dropping a major bombshell on them. "We come from another universe." To say that the League was shocked was an understatement. Everyone except for Batman and Wonder Woman were very visibly shocked by the sudden revelation. "Yeah, that's about the reaction I expected. Now, as for how, Sasuke learned of a powerful device during his travels, a new developed weapon that had been stolen and was going to be used by a rogue force of ninja who wished to start a new ninja village with those who desired to return to the old ways and meant to attack my own village itself to destroy it. Me and Sasuke did not wish that, and we decided to head out and stop them before anyone got hurt. We tracked down the rogue forces, and while I was able to convince some to surrender, the others did not. This forced us to fight and showing his abilities in combat once more, which had not dulled in the slightest even after years of travel around the world. However, their leader defied us despite his own respect for the both of us, revealed that he had already activated the weapon already, and soon it would be unleashed on my home. The weapon itself was like a cannon shell and would instantly destroy the Leaf Village in the same way others had almost done years before. I would never let that happen after all that I had accomplished, and what so many had fought and died for, so me and Sasuke intercepted the weapon with the same technique my father had used during his lifetime to move the weapon. But it detonated just as I used the technique. All I knew then was that we had stopped it before it reached Konoha, and after that, all we saw was white. We thought we were dead for a moment there. But instead, the bomb sent us here," Naruto mused as the League was finally starting to regain their former composure. "Well, that certainly answers that question," Clark stated bluntly before leaning forward slightly in interest. "Now, tell us more about your powers. What exactly can you do? And how did you get them?" "Well, you've seen some of them already. They're mostly elemental in nature and the ability to manipulate energy that the people from our world call chakra," Naruto adds. "As for how we got them, we were born with them, as all the people from our world possess." "How are we so sure if what you're saying is true? Or if the two of you can even be trusted?" Batman interjected pointedly to the disdain of the League. "Come on, Bats. They saved our butts. If it weren't for them, we would still be on that ship and the Earth would be gone," Flash argues. "The Flash is correct. If it weren't for them, we probably would not have succeeded," John adds. "Hey, it's alright. No use getting on the Bats case. If you need proof, here it is. I'm not gonna run away, and I never go back on my word. That is my ninja way. If you ever question why I want to do good and help those in need, there it is," Naruto says in his defense, as the League reflect on his words. "Well? Are we still clear on our decision?" Superman asks as the other members nod. Even the brooding Batman nodded slowly. "Wait. Decision? What's going on?" Sasuke asks in confusion, unsure of their intentions. At this, Superman stands and walks over to him, smiling as he went. "Well, Naruto and Sasuke, in response to your actions yesterday, as well as your ensured intent to do what's right, it is my honor to officially extend to the both of you an invitation to the Justice League." "No way, you want us to join the Justice League?" For real? Naruto asks in surprise as Superman nods. Of course we do. The both of you have more than proven yourself worthy enough as heroes to officially become members. Do you accept? He asks hopefully, extending his hands as Naruto grins while Sasuke nodded in acceptance. You bet we do, Naruto says enthusiastically as he shakes his hand. Then, welcome aboard, Superman says as Batman clears his throat. With that settled, it's time we decide on a few more things. Namely, where you both are going to reside until the watchtower is repaired. Actually, I was hoping we could stay in Gotham for a bit if you wouldn't mind, Naruto asks, rubbing the back of his head somewhat nervously. We can just stay in a hotel until we can find a more suitable place to live. Batman thought on this for a moment before nodding. That would be best. I can give some financial resources to accommodate you both while you're there. And if you'd like, you can fight crime during your stay as long as you stay out of my way. Naruto chuckled a little as he nodded. Whatever you say, Bats. Batman narrowed his eyes slightly before nodding. Enjoy your stay in Gotham, he says before standing. In the meantime, find some other clothes so you two can at least begin to hide your identities. You don't want to be discovered. I think we can come up with something, Naruto muses. In the meantime, I guess we'll take a look around Gotham City. Before you go take this, Superman adds before handing the two shinobi a small earpiece. With this we can contact you both whenever we need to. I'll contact you both later with the location of your hotel. In the meantime, here's a couple $100 for whatever you need. Don't spend it all in one place, Batman stated. Naruto and Sasuke both nod in understanding as the former shakes the Caped Crusader's hand. After some goodbyes and congratulations from their new teammates, the two ninja bid them goodbye before heading out to explore Gotham City. Once they were out of earshot, Superman and the others turned to their Martian comrade expectantly. Well, can we trust them? Bruce asks as the Martian's eyes glow briefly. They seem to be telling the truth, John says as the others breathe a sigh of relief that they had indeed picked the right candidates for the League. Now, it's time to start rebuilding, Batman said as the others nodded. Once Naruto and Sasuke stepped out of the room, they looked up to see Alfred approaching them with a smile on his face. Congratulations, Master Naruto, and you as well, Master Sasuke, on your inductions into the Justice League. The world needs more heroes like the two of you, he says kindly as Naruto blushes slightly at the praise while Sasuke gave a small smile in response. Thanks, Alfred. That really means a lot, Naruto says and thanks as the aging butler nods kindly before walking back to the kitchen to resume his cleaning. After one last brief look around the mansion, Naruto and Sasuke finally stepped outside before beginning their trip around the newly liberated Gotham City. With the Thanagarians defeated, Gotham City was finally returning to business as usual. The streets were once again bustling with activity, and Naruto smiled to himself as he and Sasuke ran and leaped across the rooftops of the buildings. Man, this is so different from Konoha, the seventh Hokage thought to himself as he takes in all the sights and sounds surrounding him in the city. However, he was soon broken out of his thoughts by sound of a commotion at a nearby bank. Enough sightseeing, Naruto, it's time to get to work, the Uchiha said before they ducked into an alley. Alright, just put the money in the bag and nobody gets hurt, a thug said as he aimed a gun at the bank teller, who quickly started doing as he said. 3 other thugs kept their guns trained on the other people in the bank. They wanted to be in and out before any heroes could show up. Unfortunately for them, one did. While they were distracted, the 2 shinobi burst through the doors and knocked the first 2 thugs together, knocking them unconscious. Alright pal, just put down the gun and walk away, Naruto says as the remaining 2 thugs looked at both shinobi in confusion. Who the hell are you guys supposed to be? One of them asked, trying to sound tough, as Naruto smirked. Who, me? He asked coyly before springing forwards and punching the thug in the face while Sasuke kicked another one in the stomach, knocking them right into a wall. You can call us Hokage and Shinobi. Believe it! Naruto says triumphantly before he and Sasuke dragged all 4 thugs together, as the police showed up. Freeze! Hands where we can see them, an officer said as Naruto put his hands up in surrender before an older officer in a trench coat stepped forwards. Put down your weapons before we give them the wrong impression. We need more heroes in the world. The invasion proved that, he said tersely before walking up to Naruto and Sasuke. My name is Commissioner James Gordon. On behalf of this city, I would like to thank you both for all you've done for us, he says with a tired smile as Naruto shakes his hand. It's no trouble at all. We're more than happy to help, Naruto shrugs as the thugs are quickly put in handcuffs and taken away by other officers. Well, I hope you'll be staying here for at least a little longer. Gotham could always use an extra hand or 2, Gordon says with a sigh as the 2 shinobi nodded. Don't worry. We intend to stick around, at least for the time being. Glad to hear it. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to head back to the station. You two take care. With that final word, Gordon turned around before leaving with the rest of his officers, while Naruto and Sasuke both made their own escape before they could be hounded by the gathering crowd of reporters outside. After a few more hours of walking around Gotham, now clad in their civilian clothes, with Naruto now wearing an orange hoodie and black sweatpants while Sasuke wore a black long-sleeved shirt and jeans, both ninja had finally received some word from the League in the form of a communication from Batman. Naruto, Sasuke, do you copy? The Dark Knight asked as they both pressed a finger to the communicator in their ears. Yeah, we copy. What's the situation, Bats? I have the location of the hotel you both will be staying at while you're in Gotham. I'm sending Flash down to escort you too. He should be there any minute now. As he said this, a red blur came to a stop in front of Naruto and Sasuke as Flash grinned. So, you ready to see your new temporary home? He asks as the two nodded. Yeah, we are. Lead the way, Naruto says eagerly, before Flash ran to where their hotel was, with both shinobi following close behind. Here we are. Your new temporary home, Flash said as he stopped running and stood in front of a large hotel. Oh wow, isn't Bruce going a little overboard on spending with this? Naruto asked in surprise. No, I'm not, Bruce said as his voice sounded through the communicator. Once inside, just walk up to the counter and state your names. The reservation was made in both of your names, so the hotel staff will handle the rest. Thank you, Bruce, Sasuke said. Don't mention it. After that, Naruto and Sasuke bid their goodbyes to Wally before stepping inside and walking to the front desk. The clerk looked up at Naruto and Sasuke, giving them a curt smile. Can I help you? Yeah, I would like to receive the key to our room, Naruto asks. I see. Your names? Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke Uchiha. Oh, you're Bruce Wayne's guest, the clerk said, in sudden surprise before retrieving their room key. Here you are, Mr. Uzumaki and Mr. Uchiha, your room is on the 3rd floor. Naruto thanked the clerk before he and Sasuke walked to the elevator. Room 312, let's see what we got, Naruto says as he opened the door. Both shinobi looked inside on at the room and smiled to himself. It wasn't anything too fancy. Just a bed, TV, bathroom, and kitchenette. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a massive step up from anything Flint had seen in years. Flopping down on the bed, Naruto stretched his body out before relaxing on the soft, clean bedding, taking in the entirety of the room. I could get used to this, he said with a contented sigh. Don't get too comfortable, Naruto. This is only temporary until we find a way back to our world, Sasuke said as he got ready for bed. Yeah, I hope everyone else is doing alright, Naruto mused before kicking off his shoes and easing off to sleep. In an unknown location, a soldier burst through the doors of a government facility, a sheet of paper clutched in his hand. Ma'am, we've finished the analysis of the sudden energy surge. It wasn't in no way related to the Thanagarian invasion. It wasn't? Then what was it? A hard, impassive voice said, the owner of the voice hidden by a large office chair that had its back turned to the door, a glass of brandy seen clenched in the figure's hand. It's unclear what the source of the energy was, but according to data gathered, it's connected to those two new heroes that freed the Justice League. The ninjas? Yes, ma'am, the soldier nodded as the chair spun around, revealing a serious-looking African-American woman in a dark blue suit, her stone-hard face matching her hardened voice perfectly. Continue the analysis, and continue monitoring the Justice League. I want surveillance put on those two ninja as well. I need to know any and all danger they both may possess, she says seriously as the soldier gives her a salute. Yes, Ms. Waller. It was a late night in Central City, and an uncommon sense of calm had descended over the city. Naruto smiled at that as he entered in the front door of Wally West's apartment, holding a few grocery bags full of chips. Sasuke had opted to stay behind and do patrol around the city. Alright, Wally, I got all the snacks. Even managed to find a few boxes of Oreos, and you would not believe how hard it was to find those at this time of night. One of the newest members of the Justice League laughed as he entered into the kitchen where Wally was sitting alongside John, Clark, and John. John was now sporting a new look, opting to shave his head completely bald and grow out his beard. Hey, I might be the fastest man alive, but not even I would dare search the city for a few boxes of cookies, he jokes as John happily took a box from Naruto. Alright, well, do we have everything at least? Naruto asks as Clark nods. Well, you brought the food, Wally had the drinks, and I brought the cards. Now we can get down to business. John, you're dealing the Man of Steel, says as Flint sits at the table with them. Alright, here's the rules. Texas Hold'em, 2 cards, 5 chip buy, and John explains before dealing out the cards to the others. So Naruto, are you and Sasuke ready for the big day tomorrow? Clark asks as his newest friend nods. As ready as we'll ever be. I mean, big crowds aren't new to me, he muses before shrugging as he picks up his cards. But I guess I'm still a little nervous about everything. I mean, I haven't met any other heroes outside of the league. Don't worry about that. We got a good group. You'll be meeting some great people for sure, Flash assures him. I'm just happy that with the watchtower having been rebuilt, we can get a rent-free place, Naruto says with a smirk. I mean, I know Bruce can afford it, but we don't want to be living off of his money forever. Careful there, you might wake up one morning and find out Bruce has given you both a house in San Francisco or something, John jokes as the others chuckle. Alright, this conversation is fun and everything, but let's get serious. I'm all in, Clark says before putting all his chips in for the pot. Ha, I fold, Wally says as he puts his hand down on the table. Same, Naruto sighs as John nods in agreement, both following Wally's example. What about you, John? Flash asks as the Martian looks at them all with a blank face. He finishes another cookie before shrugging. I have no idea how to play this game. Both Naruto and Sasuke stepped through the teleporter to the watchtower early the next morning, Superman warping on alongside him as the two shinobi took a cursory look around. Nice setup, Naruto remarked before stepping out into the hallway with the Man of Steel. Now, since we scheduled the meeting so early, expect there to be quite a few heroes already here, Superman said with a smile as both ninja nodded. Hey, no worries there. I know how to act and what to say, just don't expect me to say much to people who I've never met before, Naruto said. True enough, Superman chuckles before approaching the door to the foyer. Oh yeah, Clark, just one thing before we go in. Oh, what's that? Next time we play poker, that X-ray vision of yours is off limits. If Flash can't run around to check our hands, you aren't allowed to either, Naruto says seriously as Clark gives a guilty blush. Alright, fine, he relents before opening the door, revealing a whole multitude of colorful costumes and personalities all milling around the room and making introductions. Naruto and Sasuke looked around in awe at all the heroes assembled. Sure, they had fought alongside the allied shinobi forces during the Fourth Shinobi World War, but the sheer number of assembled heroes was unreal. Impressed? Superman smirks as Naruto was the first to regain his composure and nods confidently. You know it. If this is what the League is going to look like, you guys might need a bigger tower, Naruto quips, eliciting a laugh from Clark before a red, white, and blue blur quickly slams into the Man of Steel. Hey cousin, how you been? A feminine voice asks as Clark smiles broadly. Naruto, Sasuke, I'd like to introduce my cousin. This is Kara Zor-El, or as she's also known, Supergirl, he says proudly as they both shake her hand. Hey, nice to meet you, Naruto says. Likewise. So, I heard the two of you had to save my cousin, sorry, but during the invasion, she asks with a smirk as Clark grumbles slightly. Yes, and I heard you were under house arrest with your best friend the whole time, Sasuke remarks as she quickly blushes in embarrassment. Don't mind him, the invasion caught us all off guard, Naruto assured her as Superman nodded. Aside from a select few heroes, both Naruto and Sasuke's real origins were kept on a need-to-know basis. Yeah, well, it was nice meeting the both of you, the blonde teenager says before flying back into the crowd as Sasuke looks back to Superman. I take it you're happy she's here. You were beaming quite a bit. She's a good kid, and I know she'll be a great hero one day. I think the League is what she needs in order to learn the responsibility and control she needs to become that hero, Superman says, and Sasuke nods. Just let her in on that personal rule of mine. She might not get it the first time, but she will soon enough, Naruto adds before looking around. I think we're gonna go mingle for a bit, he says as Superman nods. Alright, you enjoy yourself? I'm just gonna go talk to Bruce to make sure all of the preparations are complete, he says before flying off to where Batman was talking with John and Diana. The next 10 minutes were a blur of introductions and new faces, with Naruto and Sasuke making more introductions in one day than they both ever had in their whole lives. Of all the people they met, there were some that stood out to them especially. One such person was the Question. The faceless vigilante wore a trench coat and a wide-brimmed fedora, but he was no joke. Before Naruto could even introduce himself, the crazed detective had already relayed his knowledge of Naruto and even Sasuke's name, age, and current residence. Needless to say, Naruto was more than a little unnerved while Sasuke was immediately suspicious of his motives, at least until the detective said Batman had recommended him. Anyone with the bat seal of approval had to be a damn good hero. But that didn't mean the two shinobi trusted him in the slightest. Next was an odd duo of vigilante and shining knight. One dressed like a cowboy, complete with a bandana and hat, while riding into battle with a motorcycle and twin revolvers. The other was a time-displaced knight from the days of King Arthur. Despite the incredibly odd duo they made, they functioned well as a unit and were near inseparable from each other. In their own kooky way, they were a force to be reckoned with. After all the introductions, Naruto decided he needed a bit of a break and stepped over to the window where he stared in awe at the earth. He had been to space before during his battle with Tonari, but this was unreal. To see the entirety of the planet he was protecting. It was humbling to say the least. It was then that Naruto heard Superman call for the meeting to start as the various heroes started to gather around in front of the podium. The two shinobi then joined the crowd of gathered heroes standing next to Atom Smasher, a man in a red and blue costume with the power to grow in size, and a Brazilian woman with green hair codenamed Fire. After a few moments of excess chatter, Superman raised a hand to quiet the other heroes. He was standing behind a podium on a raised platform, with Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Flash joining him on either side. After clearing his throat briefly, Superman flashed a smile before speaking to the crowd. Each of you brings something different to the table. Strength, speed, stealth, whatever he calls, garnering nods from the assembled heroes before continuing. But we're all equal in at least one way. Each of us is willing to make the sacrifices a hero needs to make. Even the ultimate one. Naruto nodded at that, before looking to the floor. It was that kind of sacrifice that sent he and Sasuke here in the first place. Since there are so many of us, we can do more than just put out fires, both literal and figurative. We can be proactive. We can do some real good in the world, but we're going to have to be organized, Superman said seriously before gesturing up. The crowd followed his gaze before seeing a smiling Martian Manhunter nodding to everyone down below from his control room. John will be up here, keeping an eye on everything. He'll be the one to decide who's going where and when. I know a lot of you are used to making those decisions by yourself, but from now on, we have to be more coordinated than that. We can't be cowboys anymore. Or cowgirls, Superman added as Naruto and a few of the other heroes in the crowd let out a small chuckle. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto noticed Batman talking to a green archer. We sent the lantern for you because you never gave us an answer, Batman said as the archer, known as Green Arrow, shrugged nonchalantly. Come on, I don't belong up here, fighting monsters and aliens and other supervillains. I just helped the little guy, and in a big club like this? You tend to forget all about him, he glowered as Batman's eyes narrowed, before he continued. So gee whiz, I'm flattered to be asked and all, but no thanks. Suit yourself, Batman answered as he turned and started to walk away, before looking back at the archer. Those monsters you don't fight? They tend to step on the little guys, he finished before leaving as Naruto raised his eyebrow in response. Huh, I guess the bat really does have a sense of humor, he says before John suddenly turned his attention to one of the computer screens on the monitor system that was flashing an alert. It's some sort of nuclear accident. The sensors are showing a massive release of heat, he reads as Green Lantern nodded. I'll get down there and try to contain it, he responded, but before he could leave the Martian stopped him. That's the odd thing. It's not dissipating, rather it's moving in a straight line, he said before calling up a roster of active team members. Take Captain Atom, he might be able to absorb some of the excess radiation. Right, John agreed before suddenly becoming thoughtful. And I could use some muscle for crowd control. Take Supergirl, John suggests, ignoring the Green Lantern's unease at his recommendation. She's got to start sometime. After a moment, Green Lantern relented with a heavy sigh. Fine, but if I'm going in with 2 new members, I'm taking someone with more experience too. I'm thinking Naruto. His abilities could be useful and it would be a good first mission for him, he says as the Martian nodded before typing at the keyboard. Use a javelin, the radiation is making it impossible for the transporter to get a fix on the location, he says before the lantern takes off. Captain Atom. Kara? Hokage. John barked as the 3 heroes in question quickly snapped to attention. About time, Supergirl said with a cocky grin before flying after him as Naruto sighed and looked back to Sasuke. Just when I thought I might have the first day off, said the 7th Hokage. We're never that lucky, Naruto, Sasuke retorts before Naruto follows behind the 2 heroes, meeting up with the 3rd hero who appeared to be wearing a silver bodysuit, with an atom on his chest, along with red gloves and boots. What's the situation, John? Naruto asked as the heroes all walked into the Javelin Bay. Not a good one. Any of you ever been to Chiang Mai? He replied before getting in one of the planes. It's on the State Department's no-travel list. It's a Class 3 felony for American citizens to go there, Captain Atom replied sternly. And I thought Amigekyo was uptight, Naruto said with a small chuckle, ignoring the confused expression Captain Adam shot him. Is it anywhere near Daytona Beach? Supergirl asked, causing the three men to groan in response. As the four heroes boarded the Javelin, Green Arrow ran up to them from across the hangar, apparently taking the same elevator that they had. You're not gonna leave me on Mount Olympus? The archer whined sarcastically as the heroes turned to look at him. You can go back the way that you came, the Lantern responded. No. No one's playing pinball with my molecules again, Green Arrow said seriously as John rolled his eyes. Alright, we'll drop you off after we're done, he relents before the archer joined them all on the Javelin, where he hesitantly took a seat next to Sandman. So Green Arrow? You the new resident smartass? Naruto asks with a smirk as the archer raises an eyebrow before returning the smirk. Takes one to know one, he answered as Naruto barked a short laugh. As John got in the driver's seat, Supergirl walked up behind him. So, you're gonna let me drive, right? She asks with a hopeful expression as Captain Adam looked to John worriedly. Wait a minute, has she been certified in a javelin? He asks seriously before Supergirl sits and makes a face, sticking her tongue out at him childishly. Why don't you take the stick out, Corporal? After a brief pause, Captain Adam looked to the side and huffed quietly. It's Captain. As the javelin took off, it gave all the heroes an unblocked look at the watchtower. The sheer size of the satellite was unlike anything that Sandman had seen before, marveling at the sheer size of it before the javelin began its approach to Earth. After a few minutes, Green Arrow leaned over to talk to Captain Adam. Is that a containment suit? He asked as the captain nodded. I'm not flesh and blood anymore, just living energy, he confirmed as Green Arrow leaned back his seat. That wouldn't be nuclear energy, would it? He asked with a frown. With a name like Captain Adam, what do you think? He asked incredulously before Green Arrow folded his arms across his chest. I think you're what I marched against back in college. The remainder of the trip was mercifully uneventful, and soon enough they arrived in Chiang Mai, landing the javelin in the middle of a forest clearing. Hokage, Supergirl, Green Lantern, and Captain Adam stepped out slowly before coming face to face with a straight path of scorched earth that went on for several miles ahead of them, forming a straight line almost like someone had just walked right through. Looks like we missed the party, Supergirl remarked as Sandman took notice of the heat still in the area. We'll do recon, Green Lantern interjected, calling their attention. If you see anything, don't try to engage. Roger, that Captain Adam confirmed, standing at attention as Green Lantern deadpanned. You can just say okay. Okay, Captain Adam replied slowly before walking off, Supergirl and Hokage following behind him. Green Arrow watched them leave, taking a sip from the water bottle he'd brought with him. As he lowered the bottle, he noticed several armed men now leveling their weapons at the four leaguers outside, ready to fire their RPGs. Get down! The archer called, quickly before taking cover. The four turned in time to see the soldiers, and Green Lantern brought up a shield around them just in time to shield them from the volley of rockets and bullets. Once they saw that the shield was holding strong, the three other heroes relaxed slightly, still on alert as Naruto instinctively covered his hands in red chakra. State Department was right about them not liking foreigners, Captain Adam said simply as he surveyed the situation. It's crazy. No reason for it. Green Lantern snapped, concentrating on keeping the shield up. I'll give them a reason, Supergirl said dangerously, readying to take off before Naruto held her back. Don't do it, kid. You'll just make a bad situation worse, Hokage said seriously. Green Lantern nodded. He's right. We came here to help them, not to fight. So you're just gonna stand there until they run out of RPGs? Green Arrow asked as he took cover behind the shield with them. If this radiation thing is as bad as it looks, there's a lot of people out there that are gonna get fried. Arrow's got a point, but what are we supposed to do to convince them that we're here to help? Naruto asks before the sound of a helicopter could be heard above the weapons. The heroes retook their fighting stances as it landed and the doors opened, but relaxed when an aging general stepped out and forced his soldiers to stand down and stop firing. My apologies for the fireworks, the general said in a sickeningly smooth voice as he walked up to the heroes. Colonel Kim here was just a farmer before the revolution. He doesn't know who you are, he continued with a smile, but Naruto had seen enough of the underworld to know that it was gratuitously fake and forced. I'm General Quan. I am most flattered that the Justice League has honored us with its presence, but I must ask why. Green Lantern stepped forwards, finally disabling the shield he created. You had some kind of nuclear accident. General Quan waved it off with a small smile. A minor problem. It is fully under control. Naruto looked back at the path of scorched earth skeptically. Somehow I don't think that's likely. If it's all the same to you, Lantern persisted before the general silenced him. It is fully under control, the general insisted, losing the smile in favor of his eyes taking on a cold and dangerous glint. If it's all the same to you. Listen, we came a long way to help Supergirl pressed. Your help is not needed here, Quan said with a tone of finality. Thank you for coming. Now goodbye, he finished before turning around briskly and storming off back to the helicopter as the troops dispersed. So what do you think? They hiding something? Naruto asked rhetorically. As the sun slowly set over the horizon, the heroes retired to the javelin, each expressing their discontent differently. Green Arrow silently fumed, Supergirl cracked her knuckles eager to break something, Captain Atom sat quietly in his chair awaiting his orders, but it was clear that even he was displeased by the way he let his normally stoic face betray his feelings of frustration. Naruto meanwhile stood next to John as the latter contacted the watchtower, the Lantern trying his best not to lose his cool. I'm telling you, John, it took all the restraint I had not to part that guy's hair with my ring, he said seriously. You did the right thing, the Martian responded, his face conveying the true weight of the situation. But the problem is not under control. It's getting worse. Yeah, but what the hell are we supposed to do in the meantime? It's not like they'll just let us back in to help, Naruto asked before a sharp yell caused them to turn. Don't you get it? Green Arrow barked as he walked up to John. They don't want anyone to find out about the accident, and they don't care how many of their own people they have to lose to keep it quiet. This isn't your concern, John replied, a cool glare leveled at the archer who returned it in earnest as Hokage stood between them to prevent the conflict from escalating. After a moment, Green Arrow finally backed down as he turned and walked out of the room. John sighed before rubbing his eyes with his thumb and forefinger tiredly as he resumed his call with John. He does have a point. Maybe the four of us should go back and… No! The Martian suddenly interjected before sighing. We can't just do whatever we want. When we formed the League, we agreed with the world's governments that we'd have to respect each government's wishes, no matter what we think of their policies. Before John could continue, Kara suddenly flew into the room looking panicked. Guys, Green Arrow is gone, she exclaimed as Captain Atom followed behind her. So is the Geiger counter, he added as Naruto groaned. Damn it, better find him quickly before he does something stupid, Naruto sighed before the four of them charged out of the javelin. The search for Green Arrow, while long and tedious, was ultimately successful as Kara managed to track him down and locate him. However, upon arrival they found the Emerald Archer firing explosive arrows at a massive robot. The machine was several hundred feet tall and was clearly the source of the radiation, judging by the heat it was giving off. It also possessed a metallic skull for a head, wreathed in flames, in addition to multi-barreled cannons on its arms which it was about to fire at Green Arrow until John saved him in the nick of time. There's civilians over by that cliff, Green Arrow said before pointing to where several civilians had been trapped on the edge of a cliff, alongside a few soldiers, by the large robot. The large crevasse behind them was the only thing stopping them from escaping to the adjacent hills as the deadly robot continued its slow approach towards them. I'll try to drain it, Captain Atom called before flying off as Supergirl gave him support. I'll try to keep those people safe, if you can make them a bridge, Naruto called as John nodded. Hokage ran in front of the civilians before turning back to the robot, its ominous approach growing ever closer. Haven't done this in a while, but here it goes, Naruto thought before preforming a few hand signs, earth release, mud wall. A large wall made of solid rock rose up in front of Naruto. Before the robot could continue forwards, Captain Atom and Supergirl arrived to distract it as John made a bridge construct out of his ring. What's that supposed to do, Naruto? Green Lantern asked as Flint pointed back at the distracted machine. This technique can take a lot of hits. Just focus on getting them to safety, and I'll keep him off of you, Naruto called as Green Arrow led the people to the bridge John formed. Captain Atom flew close into the robot before draining a large amount of energy from its reactor. Despite its best efforts, the lack of energy was taking its toll on the robot, and it suddenly lacked the energy to fight back. However, at that moment Captain Atom reached his limit as a small explosion emanated from his hands, knocking him to the ground. Kara didn't fare much better as despite its weakened state, the robot was still able to knock her back across the ravine and into the hillside. She quickly got up before flying back across to move the last of the civilians to safety, as the robot fired a burst of energy at the heroes. Look out! Arrow shouted as Naruto activated the jutsu again to raise multiple walls of earth, attempting to block as much of the energy back into the robot as he could. The robot slowly started to be pushed back by the energy but then added more power into its blast. Ah shit, Naruto deadpanned before the increase of energy proved to be too much for him after going so long without practice. The blast overpowered even the inner walls and knocked Naruto off the cliff, much to the horror of his teammates. With the last of the civilians safely across the ravine, Green Lantern put up a shield to hold back a second blast, but the energy proved to be too much and broke through his shield. He tried to dodge but was clipped on his side by the blast, knocking him to the ground quickly. John raised his head shakily before collapsing back as his vision went black. After what seemed like an eternity later, Naruto climbed up the cliff and leaped up onto the ground, allowing the hero to survey the area. Great, they're gone. And so is the giant robot, he sighs, more annoyed than hurt before stretching his neck stiffly. Well, I'd better head back to the javelin. The others are probably worried about me. Sprinting back through the jungle where they came, aided by a few fallen trees that the robot left behind, Naruto finally arrived back at the javelin, walking in to find an argument between the other members of his team. Captain Atom and Green Arrow stood nose to nose, their eyes narrowed dangerously as Kara struggled to separate the two of them. Hey! That giant robot is still out there destroying the countryside, and we don't even know if Naruto made it, so enough of the alpha male smackdown, or I'll leave you both here and solve this entire damn problem myself. She grunted in annoyance before Naruto stepped in and slapped both heroes upside the head. Alright, you bunch of idiots. What happened out there? He asked, ignoring the looks of surprise that the other heroes gave him at his appearance. Holy, you're alive? Arrow asked in shock as Naruto nodded. Yeah, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than that to take me down, he smirked before folding his arms. So is anyone gonna fill me in on how we're doing? Where's John? The shock on their faces wore off, only to be replaced with more muted expressions as Green Arrow stepped aside to reveal the infirmary beds where Green Lantern lay. The ex-marine was covered in bandages and anything not bandaged was peppered with radiation burns and bruises. Naruto stepped over with wide eyes before sighing as Captain Atom cleared his throat to call over their attention. What do we do now? He asked as Hokage turned back to face them. It's obvious that our head-on assault didn't work. Maybe the same people who made that thing also made a way to destroy it, Naruto suggested as Green Arrow nodded in agreement. I saw some men wearing hazmat suits in a nearby village. They might know something about that, he recommends as Captain Atom glared. I thought you weren't on the team? He said tersely before Naruto held him back. Easy. We're gonna need all the help we can get out here. After a minute, Captain Atom finally turned away. Fine. But I'm gonna be too busy working to cover your sorry. Wouldn't ask you to, Green Arrow responded with a lazy salute. A few kilometers away, the smoking ruins of what used to be a village laid in the path that the monster had carved as it made its monstrous trek across the countryside. Men in hazmat suits walked all through the village with Geiger counters while a few armed soldiers kept watch over them. However, despite the protection, they were still caught by surprise as Supergirl, Captain Atom, Hokage, and Green Arrow all surrounded the scientists as Captain Atom stepped forwards. What are we up against? He asked, the scientist looking around nervously and refusing to answer. He asked you a question? Supergirl shouted as a soldier ran forwards. Don't answer them. That's classified informa, he started before Supergirl cut him off as she picked his up by his collar roughly. She leveled a harsh glare towards his as her grip on his collar tightened. I've had just about enough of you guys. You've got to the count of 5. 1. 4, she said sternly as her eyes glowed red, and the soldier's uniform began to smoke under her charging heat vision. I'd speak up if I were you, Captain Atom said with a smirk. Yeah, it might help you stay in one piece, Naruto added before one of the scientists took off his helmet, revealing a face covered in radiation burns. It was supposed to be our protector, he admitted, looking down to the ground as Supergirl let the soldier go, who in turn ran off in fear. It was supposed to protect us from the foreigners. The man continued before sitting down on a piece of rubble. Green Arrow knelt in front of the man and nodded. But then you lost control of it. Is that what happened? He asked as the man nodded back, before gesturing to a box full of gray rods. We have carbon rod dampeners. But we couldn't get close enough to put them in. Captain Atom picked up one of the rods before looking back at the scientist. Where is its reactor located? The front of its upper torso. But it's too hot. You won't make it. I'll worry about that, the captain assured the man as Naruto grabbed another rod. Well, now at least we have something we can use against it. Any ideas as to how? He asks as Captain Atom nods. I think I might have one. A few miles away, the giant robot was continuing its destructive journey across the countryside as the 4 heroes arrived just out of sight of the monster. What's the plan, Captain? Naruto asks as the others look at him expectantly. Well, if one of you can distract it for long enough, I can fly in close and jam the carbon rod in its reactor, he suggests, as the others thought on it. What kind of a distraction are you gonna need? Supergirl asks as she looks back at the captain. A damn big one. Naruto then thought for a moment before smirking. I think I can handle that. How? Supergirl asks as Naruto looked at her. You'll see. Now, in order for Captain Atom to get close enough, I'll need you to stay close and maybe punch that thing if he needs you to. Think you can handle that? He asks as the girl nods with a grin. You know it, she says as she cracks her knuckles again. Captain Atom then turned to look at Green Arrow. Just in case I fail, I need you to hold some of the rods. If you have an open shot, take it. The archer took a few of the rods before looking at the other three. Are you sure about this? If you get too close, the heat could fry you. I know, the captain said simply. Before the heroes moved too far away, Green Arrow called back to them. Captain? He said before holding out a hand to the nuclear-powered hero. He stared back at the archer for a brief moment before they shook hands, looks of respect on their faces. All right, let's move out, Naruto says before speeding off. At that, Captain Atom and Supergirl took off, each carrying a few of the carbon rods with them. As they made their approach, the robot turned to look right at them, but before it could make any move to attack, a massive clawed fist made of golden chakra erupted from the ground before colliding with the monster's head, knocking it back a few feet before Naruto followed behind, having summoned a giant nine-tailed golden fox covered in black markings to stand at an equal height with the massive machine. Oh wow, Supergirl said plainly as Captain Atom nodded, both heroes in total shock at what they were seeing. However, it quickly wore off as Captain Atom rocketed forwards while the monster was distracted. All around the robot, the heat was so intense that the air around the captain ignited, while the robot sustained damage with every punch or slash the golden fox landed. Careful to allow the captain in safely, the atomic hero finally made it in front of the reactor and was about to jam the rod in before the monster shot him down to the ground with a blast from its eyes. What the hell? Naruto asked before another blast shot him backwards before the monster turned the beam towards the downed Captain Atom. Once the beam stopped firing, Captain Atom crawled out of the crater it left weakly, before gazing in horror at a tear in his containment suit. Knowing what that meant, he quickly rocketed off, blue atomic energy crackling around him as he did. Captain? Naruto asked weakly as the hero flew into the upper atmosphere before detonating in a massive blue explosion. The three other heroes watched in horror before Naruto clenched his fist. Kara? The rods. He called as the girl nodded before flying close to the ground and grabbing one of the rods while Naruto knocked the machine back. When Supergirl flew in close, the robot immediately backhanded her away into a mountain several miles away before Naruto started pummeling and slicing it again. That was eased as the monster fired another beam, letting him down to the ground, forcing him to go on the defensive until he had another open chance to continue fighting. Ah, damn it! Arrow? He asked the archer who had already readied a rod on his bowstring. On it! The archer called back before firing to rod, missing the reactor by a few feet. In retaliation, the monster fired another beam, forcing Green Arrow to duck for cover before firing another rod, this one missing by only inches. As Green Arrow hid amongst the trees to prepare the last arrow, the monster fired a blast from both cannons, completely incinerating the forest before Naruto turned to see the archer's head amongst the flames. Naruto grit his teeth in anger and frustration. It was only the first mission and they already lost 2 heroes in a matter of minutes. He quickly retaliated, attempting to crush the robot's head with Kurama's massive jaws while holding its arms in place. Finally, the smoke in the ruins of the trees cleared, revealing a burned and beaten, yet still very much alive, Green Arrow, the final carbon rod at the ready. Say ah dirtbag, the archer smirked before firing, the arrow flying true and planting itself deep in the reactor. The effect was instantaneous as the flames died and the monster lost all power. Suddenly, Supergirl flew back in before delivering a wicked uppercut and decapitating the husk that used to be a rampaging robot while Kurama charged up an energy blast and fired, annihilating the remains of the once deadly war machine. As the remains of the robot fell, Naruto released his chakra mode, the Kurama construct having dissipated as he regrouped with Supergirl and Green Arrow. How you holding up? The archer said nothing as he fell to his knees and gave the other two a tired wave. After contacting the watchtower on the outcome of the mission, the 3 heroes returned, with Supergirl flying them back in the javelin much to the men's chagrin and nervousness. An hour after arrival on the League Tower, Naruto stood with Supergirl and a now conscious Green Lantern as they watched the watchtower personnel put Captain Atom's salvaged energy into a new containment suit. John had a team pick him up right after it happened, so he didn't lose much of his energy, John explains as Naruto gave a sigh of relief. That's a relief. Don't know what I would have done if we'd lost someone on the first day of the job, he admits tiredly as the half-filled suit gave them a weak thumbs up, which Supergo returned. At least he got a new suit out of it, Kara says with a shrug as Naruto nods. Yeah, well, I'm gonna find bats. He said something about getting me and Sasuke set up with identities back on Earth, Naruto says before departing to find the Dark Knight as Supergirl looks at Green Lantern expectantly. So aren't you gonna give me the you did good speech? The teen asked as Green Lantern glared sternly at her. You're headstrong, unprofessional, and overconfident. You could have potentially caused an international incident, and just imagine what could have happened if the others weren't there to pick up your slack. You could have gotten someone killed out there. If you ever act like that on a mission again, I will personally see to it that you are kicked out of the league. I don't care who your cousin is, he said plainly, before turning around and starting to leave a dejected Supergirl behind. After a moment, he stopped and looked back at her, noting her crestfallen face. And incidentally, you did good, he added before departing, leaving a stunned Supergirl behind as her former smile slowly returned to her face. After a few minutes of searching, Naruto finally managed to locate Batman and approached him. Hey Bats, you wanted to see me? He asked as the Dark Knight nodded. Yes, I have a new identity prepared for you and Sasuke all ready to go at the Batcave. I wanted you to look over it first, just to make sure everything was the way you liked it before I officially published it. Well, gee, I don't know what to say, Bats. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, he said with a sheepish grin. I know, but if the both of you are going to attempt a normal life in this world, you need to have an identity. Fair enough, Naruto relented before the door to the shower room opened and Green Arrow stepped out. Well, if it isn't the monster killer, Batman said with a small smile as Naruto stifled a laugh. The archer merely shrugged in response. I was lucky. So was everyone else. Still don't think I belong up here. That's the point. Someone like you will keep us honest, Batman replied as Naruto nodded. He's right. With all the powers running around here, we need someone to keep the rest of us mindful of the boundaries, he adds as the archer rubs the back of his neck. Gee guys, I don't know, don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good radiation burn as much as the next guy, but I don't think that he trailed off as his eyes suddenly glazed over while he looked past the two of them. Confused, Naruto followed his gaze before smirking as he saw a stunning blonde by the name of Black Canary pulling her boots on. Naruto looked back at the still entranced archer as Batman folded his arms in triumph. So, see you around? The Caped Crusader asked as Green Arrow gave a small smile. You just might. Naruto smiled as he resumed his way to the teleporter. It looks like joining the Justice League really was the right choice after all. Naruto looked out over the tundra nervously as Diana's invisible jet soared over the ice. He wasn't entirely sure how an invisible jet was even supposed to work, but right now, the only thing he was concerned with was the fact that he could see the ground below them. Several hundred feet below them. It was more than a little alarming. After a few more minutes of flying, a large spire of ice could be spotted as the occupants of the jet prepared to enter Superman's fortress of solitude. Diana quickly put the plane into a dive as it entered the water before moving through a tunnel in the ice. A little sharp on the turn, don't you think? Batman asked her in his usual tone of voice before Diana turned to look at him with a smirk. Sorry if I scared you, she joked as Naruto shook his head. Scared? Not really. The fact that we're in an invisible jet is frightening enough, he says with a shrug before the plane surfaced in the cavern and the three stepped out of the cockpit, each carrying a package wrapped for the Man of Steel. So, what did you get him? Batman asked as he looked to Naruto. Well, I wasn't exactly sure what he enjoyed, so I just bought him a new release in a series of novels. Has Clark ever read A Song of Ice and Fire? He asked as Diana chuckled. I'm sure I've seen him reading it before, Diana said before shrugging. In any case, I'm not saying anything. He'll hear you and spoil the surprise. You do realize he can hear that too, Batman answered in a whisper before they started climbing a flight of stairs. What did you get him then? Wonder Woman asked, as she looked at the Dark Knight curiously. He isn't the easiest to buy birthday presents for, Batman started as he pulled out an envelope. Don't tell me you got him a gift certificate to Wayne Industries. Naruto joked as Diana looked at him skeptically. Bruce, she started as the detective shook his head. Relax, it's just cash, he said as Naruto and Wonder Woman shared an incredulous look. I mean, that do you get for the man who has everything? He continued before they reached the top of the stairs and ran into Superman. However, something was very wrong. He stared at them impassively, a strange purple plant growing out from his chest, with its thorn-covered vines wrapped tightly around the Man of Steel. The three heroes rushed forwards as Batman started to examine him. "It seems to be growing through his costume, and into his body," he muttered as Naruto looked at him in surprise. "Into his body? Isn't he supposed to be invulnerable?" Naruto asked as Diana looked on worriedly. "Is he breathing?" she asked in concern, as Batman shook his head. "Barely," he responded as he opened a pouch on his belt. "You two start looking around, see if you can find who did this." Someone must have breached the fortress, Wonder Woman surmised before she went down a hallway to start searching for any sign of a breach. Naruto, meanwhile, took out his Hiraishin kunai reflexively as he looked around. "I don't like this, Bats," he said plainly. Batman meanwhile took a flashlight from his belt before shining it into Superman's eyes. Pupils aren't contracting even slightly. He must be cut off from all sensation. "Kent, where are you?" Krypton. Inside a dark room and lying in a bed, a man slowly began to wake as a small alarming beeping sound began to sound off from around him. "This is your wake-up alarm," said a computerized voice. As the man slowly stirred in his sleep, he began to wake up and slowly looked up to see a floating metal android with a round metal body, two cylinder stems that seemed to act like feet, and an oval-shaped head on a thin metal neck. The face of the head had a black center with three circular glowing blue eyes connected together by a set of glowing blue tracks. "Good morning, Kal-El, and happy birthday," the robot said as the man let out a big yawn. "Thanks, Brainiac. Windows, please," Kal-El said as he slowly rose up and sat in his bed. The far wall in front of his bed then shimmered for a brief second and then slowly faded as it was revealed to be a single window, looking out over a field. The field was, in fact, a wheat field that gently seemed to flow like an amber-colored ocean in the wind, as if it were an amber sea of grain. A barn and a futuristic-looking tractor could also be seen in the distance, and Kal-El just sat there and enjoyed the scenery. As he enjoyed the scenery, he was then brought back to reality when the moan of a woman filled the air. Looking over next to him, he saw the resting body of his wife, who wore only a pale red nightgown that was held on her body by two single shoulder straps. "Please don't tell me it's morning already," she complained as she grabbed her pillow and placed it over her head, trying to block out the morning sunlight. She let out another groan of displeasure as she tried to go back to sleep, and Kal-El just smiled. "That's what you get for partying all night," he said as he grabbed her pillow and removed it, taking it away from her. "I was working," she said in complaint, her long red hair resting on both her body and the bed under her. "Come on, honey, you call that work?" he began as he moved in closer to her, causing her to smile. Covering the opening of the Argo City Museum of Modern Art, he continued as he moved in closer, causing her to smile more. "Hobnobbing with all the movers and shakers," he ended as he placed a kiss on the skin of her shoulder. "A bunch of bores," she retorted playfully as she opened her eyes and looked at her husband. "You could have come, you know?" "Next time," he replied with a big smile on his face. But it was a smile and a line that she did not buy easily. "Oh please," she retorted as she began to raise herself up, sitting up a bit more. "I couldn't get you off this farm if I exploded a quantum bomb under your," she began until the ground and everything in the home began to shake for a moment, causing Kal-El to look around with a worried look on his face. As he continued to look out through the window, "Did you whoa?" he let out as his wife grabbed him by his white muscle shirt and pulled him back down to the bed, forcing him to lay next to her once more. Looking over at her, he noticed her giving him a sultry smile as she stared at him with loving and wanting eyes. "Come here, handsome," she said in a playful but also sultry tone as she placed her hands against his cheeks and chin, pulling him closer to her. He replied in earnest as he placed a hand on her hip and pulled her close as well. As they slowly leaned in closer to claim each other's lips, they were soon brought out of their romantic mood at the sound of Brainiac's voice. A gentle reminder: Kal-El and Van-El are expected at Jor-El's laboratory in precisely 2 hours and 12 minutes. And the back 40 is overdue for inspection, he said as he reminded them of today's event list. "Shut up," Lowell complained as she grabbed a nearby pillow and chucked it at the floating android, said android just as easily floating around the chucked item as it dodged the incoming pillow. Lowell just rested her chin in her hand and let out a soft yet annoyed moan. Batman was examining a container that was at Superman's feet. It was 2/2 of an oval-shaped package, and the Dark Knight quickly surmised what happened. It was a gift. Teleported here by some alien culture or powerful world, he continued before his eyes narrowed. Or someone who wanted you to think that they were grateful, he finished before a dark chuckling could be heard approaching from one of the halls. "How remarkable," a voice commented as Batman and Naruto turned to see a large humanoid alien, with yellow skin and wearing a purple jumpsuit standing in the doorway, Wonder Woman clutched tightly in his left hand. You animals really are almost intelligent. That's exactly what happened. Oh no. Don't tell me that's who I think it is, Naruto asked dreadfully as he turned to look at Batman. Mongol Batman growled as Naruto's eyes narrowed. He had spent the last couple of days going over old case files from previous Justice League encounters, as a way of getting to know this world and its rogues gallery of villains better. From what he read, Mongol was strong enough to be a threat even to Superman. You recognize me, the villain said in a sadistic tone. I'm flattered. I'm sure that Superman told you about our previous encounter, he taunted. You mean how he humiliated you? Batman asked, his brow raised. A jaundiced account, the warlord growled, his triumphant smirk now gone. The only thing jaundiced here is your skin. Seriously, see a doctor or something, Naruto deadpanned as he stepped forward to protect Batman if need be. Mongol glared at them briefly before turning his attention to Wonder Woman as he examined her, almost as if she were an insect. What inferior specimens he surrounds himself with. I took her down before she even knew I was there. And I'll take this whole planet just as easily, he taunted before Wonder Woman's eyes snapped open and she slammed both of her feet into Mongol's face, prompting him to release her. Maybe not as easily as you think, she smirked triumphantly as Mongol glared darkly at her. We inferior specimens call it playing possum, she said before preparing to engage his as Naruto ran forwards to help her. Suddenly, Batman raised his hand to stop both of them. No, he said seriously as Wonder Woman looked at him in shock. No? She asked incredulously as Mongol took on a superior smile. Clearly the males on this planet are the smart ones, he started as Naruto's eyes darkened. He wants to know about the plant, he starts before walking over to the Man of Steel. The Black Mercy is a telepathic species. It reads the heart's desire, and it feeds the individual a totally convincing simulation of it, he laughed before grinning evilly. So he's dreaming, Batman summarized as Naruto looked back at Mongol. That's just twisted, he said plainly as Mongol gave an almost offended look. Oh, this is far deeper than any dream, he said before he titled Superman's face to stare into his eyes. I wonder where he thinks he is. Sitting on a throne, ruling the universe? All you human garbage fawning at his feet? More honest, don't you think, than this pretense of being the selfless hero? Before he could say another word, a large claw made of bubbling red chakra struck him across the face, while Wonder Woman struck him in his abdomen. However, Mongol proved to be far stronger than she thought as she shook her hands briefly in pain while Naruto came around and struck Mongol again, without holding back. The warlord stumbled back before wiping a small trickle of blood from his mouth. You don't understand. Superman was the only one who could have stood in my way. The rest of you? You're already dead, he chuckled. Krypton. Van, your breakfast is getting cold. Kal-El shouted upstairs to his son from the kitchen while making pancakes. As he continued to cook breakfast, Lowell sat at the table while reading the paper and drinking a cup of coffee. I'm coming, Van shouted down to his father. As Kal-El made his way away from the stove, he quickly skidded for a foot when he stepped on something he hadn't expected to be there on the kitchen floor. Whoa! Lowell just looked at the scene and smiled a bit. Looks like the dog left you a present, she said with a smile and then turned towards Brainiac. Brainiac, could you clean up that? She began until Kal-El cut her off. Taking a piece of a paper towel, he began to clean the dog mess off from the bottom of his boots. No, Brainiac. Van was supposed to walk the dog. He took the dirted paper towel and placed it in the deatomizer before turning back around to continue to talk to both Brainiac and Lowell. It's his job to clean it up. He then raised his head. Van, I want you down here right. I'm here. Van called out quickly from the doorway, his dog Crypto standing right behind him. Hearing his dog whine, he knelt down and wrapped his arms around him. It's okay, Crypto. How many times do I have to tell you, Van? When you asked for a dog, you promised to take care of it, I know. Van finished, remembering the deal he had made with his father. Sorry, Dad. Kal-El just stood there for a few seconds and then smiled softly at his son. Kneeling down in front of Van, he placed a hand on his shoulder. Sorry isn't always enough. You have to live up to our responsibilities. I know. Van continued as he grabbed a portable deatomizer and began to clean up the remaining dog mess. Kal-El just watched his son and smiled. This mean I can't come to the party? He then realized the small blunder he had made and looked at his dad. Oops. What party is that? Kal-El asked as he went back to flipping a pancake. Van began as he tried to make up an excuse. Lowell, acting quickly, rushed to her son's side and helped him out. You're confused, Van? Little Zod's party isn't until next, Lowell began, trying to make up an excuse. I told you I didn't want a surprise party, Kal-El scolded. And you're not getting one, she retorted playfully and then turned to Van. Eat your breakfast, Van. You and Dad don't want to be late visiting Grandpa Jor-El. Indeed, Brainiac added as he floated over. Traffic on the Kandor Skyway is backed up to the Gold Volcano. Kandor, Van began excitedly as he rushed for the door. I forgot. Lowell just flicked her hair as she watched Van and Brainiac hurry off and then walked over to her husband. I don't want a surprise party, Kal-El protested as she leaned against him, placing her hands on his shoulder. It's just a small one, Lowell replied as she gave him a pleading look with a smile on her face. Kal-El couldn't find it in him to deny his wife when she gave him that face and returned the smile with one of his own. After a moment they both then leaned in forward, gently claiming one another's lips in a passionate kiss. Naruto shook his head, speaking as someone who had fought and defeated two godlike beings. Allow me to call bullshit, Naruto quipped before preparing a Rasengan. Batman and Wonder Woman both attacked him from behind, only for Mongol to backhand Diana into the wall and toss Batman into Superman's still comatose form. The Dark Knight stood up painfully as Mongol attempted to strike Naruto. His fist was blocked by Naruto's chakra claw. Interesting, but still a futile attempt, Mongol taunted before Batman formed a new plan. Diana, can you keep him busy for a few minutes? I think Naruto might be able to pull this plant off of Clark, he called out as Wonder Woman nodded before tackling Mongol through a wall. You sure Diana can hold her own against him? Naruto asked as he stepped over to Batman. She knocked him into the Hall of Weapons. That should buy her a few minutes, he said plainly before gesturing to the Black Mercy. If you want to help, get this thing off of Superman. Naruto nodded before increasing the size of his chakra claw and grasping the Black Mercy firmly. But after a few minutes of pulling on the plant with all his might, it still wouldn't budge. Damn it, even my abilities are useless here. Batman then moved him aside and took out a small cylinder-like device and then aimed it at the plant. He then fired an intense beam of heat from it, cutting into the plant for only a moment. After a moment had passed, he stopped the cutting and they both noticed as the plant appeared to be virtually unharmed. Trying to think of what else they could do, they soon heard Diana let out a loud grunt in agony as another resounding thud vibrated the fortress. Looking back at Superman, Batman walked up to him. He'll kill her, Clark, and then he'll kill us all. Shake it off. Come back to us. Please. Hearing Diana scream out again and another thud resounding throughout the cave, Naruto turned around and faced the hole in the wall. I'll try to help Diana and buy you some time, so do whatever you can to get that thing off of him, Naruto shouted as he sprinted and leapt through the hole in the wall. Crashing through the wall and slamming into a display wall full of otherworldly weapons, Wonder Woman fell to the ground as Mongol made his way through the newest hole in the wall. While he had been slightly injured by the new warrior, it was only a temporary setback. As he walked through the wall, Wonder Woman looked next to her and grabbed a strange-looking weapon and aimed it at Mongol, locking on as he raised his hands in fake surprise. Oh dear, is that a neural impactor? I didn't know they were still making those, he said as he lumbered forward. As he moved closer, Diana took aim as she focused on him with the crosshairs within the targeting scope. I'd advise you to try the plasma disruptor. It's more of a woman's weapon. That was the last straw for Diana as she finished charging up the weapon. Go to, and with that she fired an intense beam of energy which let out a shrill-like scream as if someone was in agony. The beam slammed into Mongol, who just took the hit and then pushed through the beam, surprising Diana as she looked on in dismay. Just as Mongol made his way over to her, he then found himself being sent into a wall, the attacker being Naruto, who had used the Otama Rasengan and slammed it up against Mongol's back. Looking at him while setting the weapon down, Diana was certainly taken by surprise. Naruto, what are you doing here? Naruto just sighed as he helped her up. Saving you from getting pounded into paste, that's what. Diana just laughed a bit but soon stopped as they both turned to the sound of Mongol getting up. Looking over at the two heroes, he noticed the warrior that injured him from before. So, the Kryptonian has a friend with a power I've never seen before? Interesting, Mongol said as he began to move towards them again. But you'll have to do a lot better than that to beat me. While Hokage and Wonder Woman dealt with Mongol, Batman was still trying to get the Black Mercy off of Superman's chest. After trying everything that he had on him, even trying to use a sonic wave emitter, nothing could seem to get the plant to loosen its grip on the Man of Steel. Grr, nothing's working, Batman shouted out in frustration as he threw the device down to the ground. He then heard both Hokage and Diana scream out in pain as the fortress shuddered again from the constant attacks, and also noticed some smoke and explosions coming from the hole in the wall. They're in the Hall of Weapons, that'll buy them time, but not enough. He then placed his hands on Superman's shoulders and tried to plead with him to wake up. They're fighting for their lives, Clark. You need to fight too. Krypton. As they walked through the city of Kandor, Van-El just looked on amazed at how much bigger and louder that the city was compared to their countryside home. After finally entering the building where Jor-El was located, they walked around until they reached the top floor and walked down the hallway. I can't believe you left all this to live on a farm. It's a nice place to visit, but Kal-El tried to reply until another tremor shook the building, causing him to worry again. Van, did you? Grandpa! Van shouted out as he saw his grandfather and ran towards him. As Jor-El bent over and welcomed his grandson with a warm hug, Kal-El reached into his jacket and took out a portable communicator that was connected to Brainiac. Brainiac? A minor and completely harmless tremor. Predicted several weeks ago by the Seismic Institute. Taking a moment to think about it, he then slid the device back inside his jacket pocket and made his way to meet with his father, having accepted Brainiac's answer for the moment. Naruto was flung hard into a wall as Wonder Woman tried to use the neural impactor on Mongol again, with the same lack of success as the last time. Once the weapon finished discharging, Mongol stood up and towered over her. Taking aim again, she fired only for Mongol to grab the weapon by the barrel and crush it. Upon crushing it, he then tossed it away and grabbed Diana by her throat with his right hand, the Amazon princess countering with a left hook to his face, which he just ignored as he wrapped his other hand around her throat as well, choking the life out of her. Fighting back, Naruto ran over and jumped on Mongol's back, but the conqueror grabbed him by the head and flung him into another wall, face first. Diana used this moment of distraction as she jumped up and kicked Mongol in his midsection, but the brute just ignored that attack as well and jumped up and then slammed Diana into the floor, back first, knocking the wind out of her. First I'll kill you and the bat, and then your little blonde friend over there, and then I'll take this planet. He gloated as he began to choke her with both hands again. You won't win, Diana sputtered out as she tried to pry his hands away from her neck. Of course I will, Mongol retorted in a playful but sinister tone. He then grabbed her by the head with one hand and lifted her up before slamming her down into the ground once more. He then raised his foot and slammed it into her ribs, causing her to scream out in intense pain. Seeing his friend in such pain, Naruto's eyes became slits and emitted a golden glow as he shouted out at Mongol. Bastard! In an instant, a chakra claw collided with Mongol's head, knocking him away from Diana. What the hell? Mongol cursed as he saw Naruto reassuming his Rikudo Sennin mode once more, his cloak manifesting over 9 chakra arms. Mongol looked on with a small sense of interest. Well, that's a first. He then took another battle stance and he gestured for the 7th Hokage to make the first move. Well, it's your move, hero. Krypton. Walking around the lab, Van-El was as giddy as a schoolboy as he looked at all the specimens that his grandfather had set inside glass canisters. As he looked at all the creatures and the plants, his curiosity grew even more. What's this one, Grandpa? And this? He asked excitedly as he rushed over to the other side of the lab, looking at more specimens. Then, a strange-looking creature caught his attention, causing him to run over and look at it. All of the past events such as the minor tremors and other things that had bugged Kal-El were still plaguing his mind, and he had a hard time focusing on the current matter before him. Whoa! Where'd you get? He was about to ask until Jor-El cut him off. 1 minute, Van? Jor-El said as he kept his attention trained on his son. Something's bothering you, he said as he looked at Kal-El. Placing a hand on his father's shoulder, Kal motioned for Jor-El to follow him to a screen that was situated next to them, showing different areas on the planet that were suffering from seismic activity. Here and here and here, Kal-El began as he started to point at certain areas on the map. A series of mild tremors, not unusual, said the aged scientist, trying to keep his son calm. I don't see what. Something's wrong, Dad. Something's going to happen. I can feel it in. Kal-El tried to explain until his father cut him off. Oh, so you're a scientist now? Jor-El asked in a somewhat sarcastic tone. Dad. Do I have to remind you of a certain prediction of my own, made, I'm embarrassed to say, only when you were a few days old? Jor-El stated as he looked at the city of Kandor from the window of his lab. I announced to the world the Krypton was going to explode, and it took me years to salvage my reputation. But maybe you were right. Maybe, Kal-El continued until he saw Van walk over to them, curious to know what they were talking about. Jor-El turned to look as well, and Kal-El then decided to rethink his current train of thought. Maybe I've just been working too hard. Placing a hand on his son's shoulder, the past is dead. Focus on the future. Jor-El just smiled as he tried to calm his son's mind and then held out his hat for Van, who ran over to him, the old man hefting him up and holding him in his arms. "Can we go up to the roof, Grandpa?" Van asked excitedly. "Somebody wants to see the macroscope," Kal-El said in an amused tone. "Gone on up with your father, Van," Jor-El said as he handed Van over to Kal. "I'll be along in a few minutes." It was then that Kal-El's concerns returned, as he could have sworn he just heard his father's voice change just then. "Let's go," Van said as he slipped out of his father's arms and began to lead him to the rooftop. Kal-El let go of his hand as they passed the screen showing the world map, and his worries increased even more. "It's not right," he said as he could tell that something terrible was about to happen. Fortress, observation room. Clark's facial expressions began to change as signs of him slowly regaining consciousness began to appear. While this was happening, Batman was pulling on the Black Mercy as hard as he could, trying to detach it from Clark's body. "Yes, that's it. Fight it, Clark, fight it," he said in an almost hushed tone, still pulling on the Black Mercy. Fortress, Hall of Weapons. As Diana lay there on the ground, slowly catching her breath, and as Batman tried desperately to free Superman of the Black Mercy, Naruto was currently doing his best to hold his own against Mongol. Luckily for him, at his current level, he was more than powerful enough to take down Mongol. Molding one of his truth-seeking balls into a bow staff, bringing it down in an effort to impale the former warlord, Naruto roared as Mongol caught the weapon with his bare hands but was surprised to feel the brute's strength pushing the powerful weapon down onto his heart. He could easily expect great strength from Superman, while the Amazon was only a minor sport, but the blonde shinobi was not like any warrior he had faced before. He was willing to kill Mongol if he ever got a good enough opening, and Mongol could see it in his movements. They were the movements of someone that was trying to kill his opponent. Using his great strength, Mongol pushed Naruto back and then grabbed him by his arm and then, with a swing, lifted him up and slammed him into the ground face first. He then picked him up by the arm again and slammed him on the other side of the ground behind him, back first. But before he could do so a third time, Naruto used one of his chakra claws like a club and swatted Mongol away from him, making him cough up a slight amount of blood. Wasting no time, Naruto then molded his bow staff into a long sharp blade as he ran at Mongol and let loose a vicious slash against his chest. "Raya!" Arg! Mongol howled in pain as the blow sent him reeling into the far wall. Diana looked on and was glad that Naruto had shown up when he did. While space tech weapons were strong, Naruto's own unique abilities seemed to prove to be a lot more effective against a being such as Mongol. Grabbing another truth-seeking ball with his chakra arm, Naruto then converted it into a tailed beast ball. Naruto then started to add his wind-natured chakra to it to create his signature shuriken-like blades. Naruto then hurled it as his target, which slammed into Mongol, the blades slicing into him and causing a massive explosion, sending the conqueror right into the wall once more and causing the wall to collapse on top of him. Once the smoke died down, Naruto waited to see if Mongol was truly down for the count. He wouldn't have to long though, as Mongol burst out from the icy debris and glared hatefully at the Hokage, now covered in various bleeding gashes and burns with his clothing now torn. "Well, looks like you can hold on longer than most," Naruto said to himself as he readied himself for another battle while Mongol trudged towards him. "Congratulations," Mongol began as he cracked his neck. "I now want to kill you more than the Kryptonian." Krypton. As Van looked through the macroscope, Kal-El looked over the city from the rooftop and could have sworn that he had heard a ghostly voice quietly say the words "fight it." "Dad," Van called out as another mild tremor shook the building, causing Kal to close his eyes tightly. "Dad, you gotta look at T," Van began until he saw his father leaning over the railing as if he was in pain. Kal, seeing his son worried about him, lifted himself up and walked over to him. What's the matter? Why are you?" Van started as his father got on his knees and placed his hands on his son's shoulders. "Van, when you were born, it was the happiest day of my life. When I first saw your beautiful little face, your tiny fingers squeezed my hand so tight." Kal-El began as he placed a finger under his son's chin before moving it and placing it against his cheek. "Like you never wanted to let go. I've watched every step, every struggle. But Van, Rao help me," he continued, whispering the prayer to the Kryptonian god. "But I don't think you're real. I don't think any of this is real." "Don't say that, Daddy, please, you're scaring me," Van pleaded as he wrapped his arms around his father, hugging him tightly. No, I don't want to scare you, Van," Kal-El said as he returned his son's hug. "You are everything I ever wanted in a son. This is everything I ever wanted in a life," he continued as he pulled his off of him and held him by his shoulders, tears streaming down both of their faces. "But I got responsibilities, Van. And I have to go now," and with that he pulled his son into a tight hug. With that, the planet of Krypton began to shake violently as fire erupted from the mountains and the streets, destroying buildings and monuments alike. As the destruction continued, Kal-El looked at his son, placing his hands around his cheeks. Daddy Van pleaded with his father, causing Kal-El to hug his son once more as more tears streamed down their cheeks. I promise you I'll never forget. With those last words, the planet of Krypton erupted and exploded from the core outwards, sending rocks and violent energy waves rippling out into space. The last thing that Kal-El could even remember seeing was his own son's face as his world exploded all around them. Fortress, observation room. Yes. Batman shouted as he finally freed Superman of the Black Mercy's grasp, but was soon taken over by the plant itself as it latched onto him, digging into his mind and reading into his heart's greatest desire. Falling to his knees, he could easily see both his memories and his greatest desire taking shape in his mind, hearing the all-too-familiar phrase he had uttered the fateful night when his parents had been murdered. Beware my terrible sword. Gotham City. Leaving a theater which was showing the movie, The Mark of Zorro, a young Bruce Wayne and his parents walked down an alleyway that would lead to the main street so that they could catch a cab. As they walked down the alley, young Bruce was swishing around an imaginary sword while shouting out, "Ha, let all evildoers beware my." He was soon cut off though at the sight of a figure emerging from the shadows. The man, obviously a thug, walked up to them and aimed a gun at the family while making a motioning gesture with his free hand. "We'll start with the pretty pearls around the lady's neck," the thug demanded. As the Wayne family huddled together, the thug raised the gun and glared at them. Now. He began to slowly pull the trigger, the hammer of the gun slowly inching back as it prepared to fire. It was then that Mr. Wayne rushed forward due to the desire of wanting to protect his family. Pushing up the hand holding the gun, the firearm shot off into the sky as Mr. Wayne kept a firm hold on the arm while delivering punch after punch into the man's face and gut. Yes. Young Bruce cheered on excitedly as he watched his father beat the thug for trying to threaten his family. Fortress, observation room. Seeing the desire playing in his mind, Batman let an actual pleasured smile cross his face at the sight. Meanwhile, behind him Superman's eyes began to fill with rage as he could clearly remember what he had just gone through. He then picked up on the sound of Naruto screaming in the background as he continued to pound away at Mongol. Turning towards the hole in the wall, he was off like a missile as he flew through the hole, with only one thing on his mind: to make Mongol pay. Fortress, Hall of Weapons. Naruto skidded back as he blocked Mongol's punch with both arms. Diana tried her best to push herself up. She had come to her young friend's defense. As she slowly got up, Mongol picked up a battle staff with a bladed edge from the ground and held it above his head, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. Just as Naruto was about to counter, Mongol heard the sound of something coming towards him at a fast rate of speed. Turning his head, he only had the time to see Superman fly straight through the hole in the wall and ram into him, driving him through the floor behind both Diana and Naruto and into a hallway that was set inside the wildlife exhibit which housed many different animals from many different worlds, each one the last of their kind. As Superman dealt with Mongol, Naruto ran over to help Diana as she then collapsed back down to the ground. "Diana!" Naruto shouted out as he reached out to her but found her pushing his hands away. "I'll be fine, Naruto. You just go help Superman while I go and see how Batman's doing." Naruto, not wanting to leave her by herself in her injured state, reluctantly agreed as he ran towards the hole in the ground. "Yeah. But you better not die on me." With that, he leapt through the hole and down to the next room. Fortress, Animal Exhibit. Crashing into the ground hard, Mongol bounced a bit until he got his footing only to get a club in the face courtesy of Superman using his fists like a club. Superman then went on to sending left and right hooks into Mongol's face again and again, over and over, as he backed him up against the wall, his mind set on only wanting revenge while the animals within the exhibit just watched on. "Do you have any idea what you did to me?" Superman demanded as he punched him again and then grabbed him by the scruff of his suit and lifted him before punching him once more before slamming him into the wall. He then pulled him off the wall and punched him once more before sending him flying across the floor with a powerful right hook. Rushing over to him, he was soon sent flying to the floor himself as Mongol kicked him away. Picking himself up, Mongol strode over towards him. "I fashioned a prison that you couldn't leave without sacrificing your heart's desire." He gloated as he cracked his neck, working out the kinks. "It must have been like tearing off your own arm," Mongol stated as he grabbed Superman by the head and lifted him up. Preparing to deliver the finishing blow, he was once again shocked as a pair of black rods rammed into his body and pinned him against the wall, forcing him to let go of Superman. "I don't think so," Naruto shouted as he ran over to Superman, helping him up. "You okay?" "I've been better," he said as he placed a hand to his chest. He then turned towards Naruto, thanks and wa. Let's not get into it right now, Naruto said as he turned to face Mongol, who was now massaging his shoulders and back. Ask me once this bastard is down for the count. That's good enough for me. Fortress, observation room. As the sounds of battle below her escalated, Diana slowly made her way to the hole in the wall, crawling on her stomach as she held her injured ribs. As the fortress shook violently from the battle that Superman and Naruto were having with Mongol, Diana made her way over to the opening and pulled herself up. Looking back into the observation room, she noticed Batman's back facing her, his body kneeling on the ground. Bruce! She gasped out in shock as she slowly made her way over to man that she cared for most. Fortress, animal exhibit. Naruto leapt onto Mongol's back and prepared to impale him with his chakra rods. Mongol would have none of that though, as he grabbed Naruto and flung him into the far wall. He then turned around and caught a punch aimed for his face, and then let loose a punch of his own, send punch after punch into Superman's face and gut instead, sending him to the ground. As he reached down, he was soon sent reeling by a powerful blast of gold and black energy. Hitting the floor face first and quite hard, he pushed himself up and looked over to see Naruto having manifested Kurama's head as it powering up another tailed beast ball, which he then fired right at Mongol. Displaying his own agility, Mongol jumped up and out the air and came down with his fists like clubs, landing a blow onto the top of Naruto's head, knocking him to the ground, dissipating the construct. He then picked him up by the head and held him there, looking him right in his gold pupils. I don't know who you are, but you have interfered long enough. And with that he began to pound his fist into Naruto's gut, causing the 7th Hokage to scream in agony. After a few more blows, Naruto's body just dangled there, allowing Mongol to admire his handiwork. My, finished already. He had spoken too soon though, as Naruto quickly recovered and grabbed Mongol's wrist, crushing it in his grip so as to force the brute to let him go. Arg! This is for Batman! Naruto shouted as he slammed an chakra-covered fist into Mongol's chin in the form of an uppercut, causing the conqueror to bounce off the ceiling, head first. Landing on the ground, Mongol soon found Naruto grabbing him by the leg and was then quickly swung around like a rag doll. This is for Wonder Woman! Naruto roared as he let Mongol and sent him soaring over Superman, who watched the fight going on and saw Mongol crash right into another wall. He then looked back at Naruto, who was forming 2 chakra claws from his cloak. Raising the left one, this one is for Superman. And then raising the right one, and this one's for me. With that he fired another tailed beast ball in the form of an energy wave. The blast was so powerful that Superman jumped out of the way to avoid. The blast carried on and slammed into the wall. Mongol, barely lucky enough to have moved out of the way in time, noticed the damage that the attack did and was glad that he was not on the receiving end of it. Nice try, but you'll have to be quicker on the draw if you want to hit me. Mongol chortled as he ran at Naruto, who ran right back at him. Naruto let his fist fly, but Mongol sidestepped the punch and delivered a gut punch of his own, knocking the wind out of him. Before Mongol could even capitalize though, Superman flew at him and slammed his own fist into Mongol's face. Staggering back a bit, he then caught a fist aimed for his stomach and turned it upwards, causing Superman to grunt in pain before being sent to the ground by a series of punches to the face. Mongol then grabbed Superman by the head with one hand while choking him with the other. Using his hand that grasped Superman's head, he began to squeeze, trying to crush his skull. Lifting him up into the air, he just smiled a sinister grin as he gloated. Happy birthday, Kryptonian. I give you oblivion. Superman, enraged with Mongol for what he still did to him earlier and now for what he had done to his friends, let his anger rise to the surface as his eyes glowed red, activating his heat vision. Burn! With that, he let loose his heat ray vision upon Mongol, burning a gash across his chest, causing Mongol to cry out in pain. Fortress, observation room. Hearing Mongol's tortured howls and seeing the burning red glow from what the remains of the room behind her, Diana used all of her remaining strength to push herself up and carry herself over towards Batman. What she saw though shocked her to no end as she noticed the Black Mercy now latched onto his body. Hera, no! Thinking of what she could do to save him, she reached out and began to yank as hard as she could on the plant, trying her hardest to pull it off of Batman. Bruce! Gotham City. As he watched his father beat down on the alley thug, young Bruce cheered his father on as best he could. Get him, Dad, get him. He continued this cheer as his father continued to beat down on his family's attacker. It was while he was watching this scene take place that he could have sworn he had heard a woman shout out his name. Bruce! At that moment, young Bruce soon began to notice the favor of the fight shifting towards the mugger, as he pushed Mr. Wayne away from him and took aim with his gun. The last thing that young Bruce would see was the flash of the gunfire, and the last thing he would ever hear was the sound of the gunshot. Fortress, observation room. Finally detaching the Black Mercy from Batman's body, Diana now found herself trying her hardest to wrestle with the alien plant while keeping it at bay. The Black Mercy, meanwhile, kept lashing out at her with his strange-looking tongue, trying to ensnare another victim as Batman looked on from the other side of the room. Fortress, animal exhibit. Using a powerful right hook, Mongol sent Superman right into a wall and then, with a kick to the gut, sent Naruto skidding across the floor. Turning his attention back to Superman, Mongol slowly trudged over towards him, wanting to finish him off once and for all. You should have stayed in whatever happy fantasy that the Black Mercy granted you. Mongol then rushed at Superman but soon noticed Naruto jumping in his way. It didn't matter much as he collided with Naruto and still kept on going, crashing into Superman as well. He then went on to punch the both of them over and then slammed them down to the ground. He then jumped into the air and brought his fist down upon the both of them like a club, demolishing the floor beneath them and sending them all down to another lower level of the fortress. With clouds of ice and dust kicked up from the impact, Superman and Naruto slowly got up, as did Mongol, and Superman was not happy at all. Happy? Superman grabbed Mongol and lifted him up fully before punching him hard in the face, sending him careening right into the base of a huge statue. Superman then flew over to Mongol and began to pound away at his face repeatedly, letting out all his rage and frustration as he continued to punch away at Mongol's face like it was a punching bag. Do you know what I've lost? He continued to pound away, causing rubble from a broken part of the statue where they had crashed through when they went through the floor moments earlier to fall around them. Superman then looked up at the statue of his parents and hesitated, thinking back to the world that the Black Mercy had shown him for a brief second. But it was all Mongol needed. Grabbing him by the head, Mongol brought Superman down into a powerful knee smash which he rammed right into his gut, knocking the wind out of him. Falling to the floor, Superman watched as Mongol went over and picked up a huge boulder. Naruto also watched, and his own rage began to fill the very fibers of his being as he started to add Shikaku's chakra into his Rasengan. You know, for a moment there I almost believed you were gonna kill me. Mongol chortled as he hefted the huge boulder above his head. How stupid of you to hesitate like that. Not a mistake I'll make, I can assure you. Mongol screamed in agony as Naruto slammed a magnet-release Rasengan into Mongol's body, penetrating his thick skin. Die! Naruto roared as Shikaku's markings started to cover Mongol's entire body. But it wouldn't last long as Mongol swatted him away but found that he could not move at all after that. Why, you little punk! How dare you! Excuse me? A voice called out from above. Looking up at the hole in the ceiling, Mongol saw the one thing he was hoping he wouldn't. Standing by the hole was Batman, and lying on the ground next to the hole in front of him was Wonder Woman, with the Black Mercy firmly wrapped around her arm. But I think this is yours. And with that she hurled the Black Mercy at Mongol, who found himself unable to move out of the way due to the magnet release immobilizing his entire body. The Black Mercy soon attached itself to Mongol, and it then once again began the process of siphoning off energy from its new host while giving them a convincing dream to live in. 10 minutes later. Standing before the unconscious form of Mongol, who now had the Black Mercy strapped to his body, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, and Naruto, who had released his six paths mode and reverted to normal, watched over the evil warlord as he dreamt his life away. Walking up to Superman, Diana extended a strange-looking flower to him. This was your birthday present. A new breed of rose called the Krypton. But she began as she handed him the rose. Don't worry about it, he assured her as he took a whiff of the Krypton scent and then looked at the statue of his parents. I promise you I'll never forget. The four of them looked at the statue for a moment longer, and then returned their gaze upon Mongol. I wonder what he's seeing, Diana asked with a small sigh. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders. Who knows, and I sure as hell don't ever want to find out. Whatever it is, it's too good for him, Batman said in an angered tone as Mongol smiles weakly as cries of agony and sounds of war echoed in his mind. Located in the realm of the Greek gods, deep within a chamber where the heat was more intense than the fire under a cauldron, one of the gods was busy at his work. Pounding away with his hammer, Hephaestus was creating his newest masterpiece. As he worked, another one of the gods entered his domain, wearing a set of sectioned silver armor with a purple cape attached to the back. He had short blonde hair and steely blue eyes, and he was not very happy at the moment. This was Ares, Greek god of war. Walking over to his brother with an arrogant determination in his stride, the god of war came up to Hephaestus, and he was not in the mood for any excuses. You said come back Tuesday. Well, it's Tuesday. I want my suit, Ares demanded, causing Hephaestus to stop his work and look over to his brother. Hephaestus swung down his hammer again, adding another touch to his current work while responding to his brother. Patience, brother. You know how much I care about the details. It doesn't have to be pretty, Hephaestus, Ares chortled while giving his brother an unsettling glare. Where it's going, things aren't supposed to be pretty. Hephaestus looked at him and smirked a bit before retorting to his brother's latest comment. Present company excluded, of course? Just hurry up, Ares ordered. Hephaestus just grinned as he trudged over to his fire pit and grabbed a rod with a flat base on one end from the fire and moved back over to the remainder of the suit he was working on. Placing the flat base against the armor, smoke rising off the suit from the contact of heated metal against unheated metal, he raised his hammer and delivered the final blow. My finishing touch. With the strike of his hammer, the flat base of the rod imprinted Hephaestus' personal insignia on the center area of the suit. The symbol glowed for a few seconds before becoming dormant. Placing his tools inside a barrel on the side of his work table, Hephaestus grabbed the remainder of the suit and lifted it up, slowly walking over to the other finished portion of the suit which looked like a giant piece of armor. Following his brother, Ares looked at the suit with some scrutiny as Hephaestus placed the final piece onto it, the piece actually being the front of its torso. Stepping back, Hephaestus gave Ares the general information on the now finished suit. The Annihilator, heartless, indestructible, and ready to feed on mankind's misery and rage per your specifications, he told Ares. The Annihilator was a big black metal suit of armor with big shoulder pads and gold trim etched all along its joints and the segments of the armor. Its waist had a golden belt design with 2 red orb-like lenses in the center, and its faceplate had 2 horizontal slits, giving it a lifeless, soulless appearance. It also had red gems on its knuckles and a golden metal high collar, while the sides of its head were gold as well. It was truly a masterpiece that could only have been made by the gods. Go ahead, Ares. Give it life, Hephaestus instructed. Ares smirked and did as instructed, backing away a bit as he unsheathed his broadsword and held it out in front, presenting himself as a challenger to the Annihilator. The slits on its faceplate released a white glowing light as it came to life. It stalked towards the god of war with a lifeless stride and began to swing away with its right arm, constantly parrying Ares' sword and driving him into a corner. Pushing him up against a pillar, it then brought its arms down like a makeshift club, trying to crush Ares, who used his sword to push back. Enough! Ares commanded, and the Annihilator listened, stopping its attack and backing up before powering down. Ares looked at the Annihilator and developed a sinister grin. Wrap it up. I'll take it. With no missions to go on at the moment, Sasuke took this time to train. With Naruto on a mission with a team consisting of Green Lantern, Vixen, and Black Canary, he needed a sparring partner, or this case, partners. Currently, Sasuke was in the simulator room and blasting at the robotic facsimile of several of the Justice League's adversaries. Bizarro, Volcana, Atomic Skull, Killer Frost and him were fighting in the middle of a city which resembled New York, and as such various attacks were being thrown about. Meanwhile, watching him was one of the League's newest members, the Question, and he could rival Batman in paranoia and the position for the world's greatest detective. However, he preferred to shy away from the limelight. The Question, always serious, always thinking that everything was a conspiracy, was watching Sasuke. The Uchiha wasn't the only one on his mind. Hokage was also in his thoughts. Just who were they? Where had they come from? Up until their introduction on live television, nobody knew who they were. Judging by the way they spoke, they were Asian, Japanese to be specific. What made him curious was their abilities and past. Then again, the Question was suspicious of everyone. The 2 shinobi were just a new addition to his list of suspicious persons. Sasuke had combined his Chidori with Blaze Release, Kagetsuchi, blowing up Atomic Skull in an instant. Standing in the fiery crater where Atomic Skull had once been, Sasuke quickly swerved around the blast of fire which had been fired at him, courtesy of Volcana. Predictable, Sasuke muttered in a low tone as he then activated his Sharingan, sending a torrent of Amaterasu at Volcana, easily overpowering her flames and roasting her, causing her to explode on the spot. He prepared to move on to fighting Bizarro when he narrowly avoided an ice blast from Killer Frost. Looking up, Sasuke rolled out of the way as Bizarro brought his fist down, trying to beat Sasuke to a pulp. I have to admit, they are rather formidable compared to the real thing, he mused as the Susanoo began to envelop him. As Sasuke trained in the simulator room, John was busy overlooking most of the current missions. He already had to step in and stop Diana from pummeling a bank robber into a coma, easily seeing her anger and rage. Their time amongst the humans was slowly making them more prone to anger due to all the hostile and negative emotions that they came across on a daily basis. Of course, she wasn't the only member of the League who seemed to have some self-control issues. Besides Diana, John also noticed that Sasuke tended to be a bit excessive as well during the few times he'd seen him fight. It was something that was going to need to be addressed soon before the Uchiha did something he could never undo. As John checked in on Sasuke's training, He also opened a connection to Wonder Woman, who had already picked up Hawk and Dove and were about to head to their next mission. "Diana, are you about to fly off to Kaznia with Hawk and Dove?" John asked. "Yes, John. We're about to leave and should be there within a few minutes," she replied. "Before you take off, I want to send one last member down there as well to assist you," he told her. "And I need to get him out of the simulator room before he destroys all the Simudroids out of boredom," John thought while looking at the video feed of Sasuke in the training room. "Who did you have in mind?" Wonder Woman asked. "I'm going to send Shinobi. Just wait for a few minutes, and he should be there momentarily." "All right then, but don't take too long in getting him here." Wonder Woman out. Susanoo brought down its massive fist upon both Bizarro and Killer Frost, causing them to explode and for the parts of both Simudroids to go flying everywhere. After releasing Susanoo, the communicator in Sasuke's ears suddenly beeped. "What is it?" "Shinobi, you're needed in the command center," John summoned. "Fine, I'll be right there," he answered. After exiting the simulator room and dodging questions from the question, Sasuke made his way to the command center of the watchtower, which was the platform that was situated above the teleporter bay. Entering through the doors, he saw both John and Mr. Terrific hard at work at keeping an eye on all the current missions. It actually surprised Sasuke at just how much trouble this world had going on every single day. This world seemed come into crisis more often than his original one, and it amazed him to no end. Walking up to John, Sasuke asked, "So, what's going on?" He leaned against the side of a console. "I'm sending you to Kaznia with Diana, along with Hawk and Dove," explained John. "Very well," Sasuke remarked, not even batting an eye. John just gave him a curious stare. "You could socialize and get to know the other new members," John advised. "None of them interest me in the slightest. So, what's going on in Kaznia?" "As you should know, North and South Kaznia are in a civil war," John informed Sasuke. "What else is new?" Sasuke responded. As he was in a new world, he needed to know everything. He paid attention to the news, both local and international. Information was important. It helped back in his own world, and he wasn't one to dismiss any advantage. He needed information to adapt to everything. "Well, it's starting to escalate. The Queen has asked the League for assistance as both factions have ties to allies in other countries," John reminded him. "And let me guess, if it gets worse, it could be a big disaster for everyone in that region." John just nodded his head. "Right then, well, just send me to the princess location and we can get this mission underway." "Very well, but try to show some restraint," reminded the Martian. "We don't want another incident like last time when I sent you to Nigeria." Sasuke sighed as he remembered that incident. A Nigerian drug lord tried to shoot at him a couple of weeks back and Sasuke nearly slit his throat. The way he fought was becoming infamous among the League members, and it was why many of them steered clear of him most of the time. South Kaznia Military Camp. Inside a military camp within South Kaznia, a group of soldiers sat and stood before a small wooden stage which was currently being used by their general and a balding monk with a wooden staff. The monk had a wide-eyed look about him as he spoke to the soldiers, riling them up for the battle that was about to take place. It would be a battle that no one in their right mind would want to fight, and those that did could be considered lucky if they survived and made it home in one piece. "The northern tribes have infested our motherlands for too many generations," said the monk as the soldiers gave him their undivided attention. "Kaznia is ours. By the blood of our fathers and our fathers' fathers." The soldiers talked amongst themselves about his words before he continued. "Right now, they're preparing a new weapon, a weapon with fearsome power. We've got to attack now to protect your farms and families from their vicious hands." The soldiers all raised their fists and guns in the air, shouting out in agreement with the monk. The general walked forward, placing his hand on the monk's shoulder while raising his hand to give them their orders. "Move out! And may fortune be with you!" the general shouted. The soldiers all ran to their vehicles after arming themselves and drove off. As they left, the monk watched, his body suddenly becoming enshrouded in flames as his robes were replaced by segmented silver armor. His face then morphed into that of Ares, the god of war. A pleased grin on his face, he awaited the carnage that was about to ensue with much anticipation. Good. With the North using the Annihilator and the South rushing into battle, there will be plenty of war to go around, Ares said to himself. This will be so much fun. Outskirts of town, outside Wonder Woman's invisible jet. "So how much longer are we gonna have to wait for the no-show, Princess?" Hawk asked, slightly annoyed at having been made to wait instead of being able to get into some action. Wonder Woman had just pulled them out of a brawl at a local sports bar that they were easily winning at before John told them to stand by for their final member to be contacted. "For as long as we have to," she retorted. Now just be quiet and relax. Come on, Don, Dove asked his older brother. Can't you be just a tad bit nicer? Hey, not my fault that she's in a bad mood today, Hawk shot back. Must be her time of the month or something. Wonder Woman was about to make a remark to his statement when a column of white and blue light made of tachyons formed before them. Within seconds the light disappeared, leaving the dark-haired Uchiha known as Shinobi standing before them. Hawk and Dove looked at the League's infamous purple-clad ninja and knew that their day just got a whole lot worse. Wonder Woman, on the other hand, was much happier seeing as someone she considered a good friend and someone she could trust had been sent to help out. Sasuke, himself, was satisfied to get sent on a mission. Looking at Hawk and Dove, he gave them a scrutinizing look as if judging them. He'd never heard of them before and didn't know what they were capable of. Hopefully, they wouldn't make his life difficult. He knew most of the League members, well, those that made enough effort to at least say hello to him. Then again, his personality and mannerisms made him the poster boy of someone who you didn't want to make mad. He could easily give a few of the founders a run for their money. Shinobi, Diana greeted as she clapped him on the shoulder. It was a gesture he had gotten used to over the past few months, and it no longer irritated him. I'm glad that you're here. I'm sure John has explained everything. More or less. He gave me the basic information, Sasuke replied. So, these are Hawk and Dove, huh? He asked, motioning to the two bird-themed heroes standing behind them. Dove made the first move by walking over to Sasuke, holding out his hand. Hawk just watched, knowing that this was not going to go well. Sasuke just watched as Dove came to a stop, his hand held out for Sasuke to take. Diana just watched, hoping that Sasuke wouldn't make them angry within the first few minutes. It's a pleasure to meet you, Dove said. I'm Dove. And that big lug behind me is my older brother, Hawk. He waited for Sasuke to take his hand, but all he got was a slight scoff before turning to look at Diana. Was this really all that was available for a mission of such importance? Sasuke chastised. Hey! Sasuke turned to see Hawk come up to him, not too thrilled with how he just blew his little brother off. My kid brother just said hello, and yet you just blow him off like that, dash. What gives you the... Knock it off, Diana ordered, stopping the fight before it could escalate. Hawk and Sasuke looked at one another, their eyes locking as the former glared while the latter still kept his composure. Alright, we got a mission to accomplish, so, everyone, on the plane now. The three of them noticed her glare and the threatening tone in her voice and dared not argue. Hawk and Dove mostly because she could beat them to a pulp. Sasuke more out of respect as she was always respectful to him. Flying over the mountains which were close to Kaznia, Wonder Woman concentrated on flying her jet while Hawk, Dove and Shinobi sat in the back. Hawk and Dove were still arguing a bit, and Sasuke just listened. Diana had asked him to just be quiet and listen to them so that he might learn how to handle them. Taking Diana's advice and listening to the brothers' conversation, he found that he did like Hawk's direct approach to some problems, but he also liked how Dove wanted to think things through, see everything from all the angles and possibly talk it out. He could see how the brothers balanced one another out but also found them rather annoying when they couldn't agree with one another. It was times like this that he wished he was either on a mission with Naruto. Why not just let them obliterate each other? Hawk questioned, Diana looking back at him as he asked his question. If people can't control their own country, they don't deserve to have one, he finished, crossing his arms over his chest while looking out the window. Way to oversimplify. Hawk turned to look at Dove, who was looking at him. These folks live in poverty. And when you have so little, it's so easy to be swayed into blaming your neighbor. Almost all aggression can be cured with education. Sasuke found himself agreeing with Dove on that point. Many poor countries and villages argued and fought over the smallest of reasons as that was all they had. He decided to focus more on their conversation, hoping it would help him come up with a proper strategy in order to succeed in this mission. Yeah? Hawk asked in a counter-response. Then how come some of the best educated guys in the world work at the Pentagon? Sasuke also saw a good point with Hawk's rebuttal and wondered if there was anything more interesting to hear from them. But instead of countering Hawk's response, Dove looked to Sasuke. Hey Shinobi, what do you think? Dove asked. Oh yeah, sure, asked the introvert, Hawk snorted. Sasuke's eyes narrowed at the elder brother for that remark. Watch it, Hawk, Diana warned. I'm sure you're well aware of how powerful Shinobi can be, so don't go getting him angry. I'd rather not have to clean your bloodied remains out of my jet. Hawk looked at her and then at Shinobi, as the Uchiha unleashed a wave of killing intent around him. Hawk grinned nervously. Yeah, maybe after we land. Smart move, Hank, Dove stated. Looking back at Sasuke, so Shinobi, what do you think of our talk that we had a moment ago? What do I think? I think you both made good points, but if I have to listen to the two of you argue for another minute, then this jet's going down due to you two irritating me, Sasuke chided. Now then, he said as he leaned towards Diana. Have we arrived yet? Down there, she replied, causing the three of them to look out the canopy to see the war zone below them. Sasuke had first-hand experience with war. War was basically an expression of desire to the extremes. People wanted something and would go to huge lengths to do it, even start wars. Even if innocent people were killed in the crossfires, wars could not be stopped or avoided until either surrender was declared, the enemy was defeated, or all forces were wiped out. War never changes, he murmured, so, do we go down there and start wiping out those stubborn warmongering fools or what? You're really prone to violence, aren't you? Dove questioned. The war raged on between the northern and southern tribes of Khaznia as bullets, shrapnel and tank shells flew across the battlefield, which was a small town. A few North Khaznians took shelter in a nearly destroyed building, using the wall as a shield as they peeked around the giant gaping holes and opened fire, using a pair of AK-47s to try and take out their enemies. They quickly hid though as a tank came rolling by. Their retreat would be useless as the tank opened fire, blowing away the wall and killing the men inside. As the forces of the South Khaznians moved forward, the Annihilator came onto the battlefield, feeding off the rage and aggression of the war around it. With the forces of the North Khaznians forming behind it, the Annihilator marched forward as a gunner on the back of a military jeep let loose his payload on the soulless suit of armor which came at them. The bullets merely ricocheted off of its body as it reached out and grabbed the turret. The man jumped out of the jeep as did his fellows while the Annihilator lifted the jeep and tossed it into an oncoming tank, destroying both and killing the men inside. As it prepared to advance, it received more machine gun fire. Turning around, it noticed a lone soldier trying to harm it, but it took the bullets hitting it in stride. Noticing the Annihilator coming towards him, the lone soldier began to back away from the behemoth advancing towards him. He fired at it with his machine gun, but the bullets just bounced off it over and over again. Raising its arm, it prepared to smash the soldier until it was knocked slightly forward by the impact of a tank shell. The soldier took this as his cue to run for it. As the soldier ran, the tank continued to open fire. The Annihilator just kept on advancing towards the tank, slamming its fist into it and killing the gunner inside. As it lifted up the tank and tossed it as the other oncoming tanks, Wonder Woman and the others arrived on the scene to see the apparent massacre taking place. The four of them just looked at it and easily saw that the soldiers were easily no match for it. Most of them had already run away from the battlefield and tried to take cover as the Annihilator continued its unstoppable path of destruction. Who is that? Hawk asked as they watched the battle continue. These people don't stand a chance against it, replied Dove. Watching the battle and coming up with a plan, Wonder Woman issued her orders. Hawk, Shinobi, you two are with me. Turning to Dove, Dove. I'm on it, he replied as he raced off with his enhanced speed. As they spread out, two soldiers fought for control of a machine gun. Kicking the younger man to the ground and into a pile of bricks, the older man took aim, preparing to fire, but was surprised when the gun disappeared from his hands in the blue. Looking over to his left, he noticed the form of Dove standing there with the machine gun held in both his hands. He then snapped it in two by busting it over his leg before tossing it away. Both of you scram, Dove ordered calmly, which the two soldiers complied with, running from the battlefield. Dove smirked but then heard the sounds of more destruction and looked over to see the Annihilator still at work. It had a tank held above its head as it ran over and slammed said tank into another tank which had been firing upon it, causing both tanks to explode. It then got pegged with another tank shell, making it lumber towards another tank, backhanding it away and sending it flying before slamming into a far wall, exploding on impact from the force of the collision. As it prepared to continue, it received a boulder to the side of the head. Looking down, it saw Hawk pick up another boulder which he threw at it, but it did little to stop it. As it headed towards him, the Annihilator quickly found itself being bombarded with a torrent of flame which made it stagger backwards. This gave Hawk enough time to use his own enhanced speed to move out of the way. Looking up into the sky, the Annihilator noticed Sasuke charging at it with his sword infused with the Chidori, aiming to strike it down. Grabbing a bolt of a broken down tank by the turret, it flung the tank at Sasuke, which he was barely able to avoid. Sasuke then activated his Rinnegan, launching a Shinra Tensei at the advancing Annihilator, resulting in a massive shockwave. Both Sasuke and Hawk looked on with a satisfied look on their faces, but then both looked on in shock as the smoke cleared, revealing the Annihilator to be completely unharmed. This is troublesome, Sasuke remarked as the Annihilator took a swipe at him, and the Uchiha was sent tumbling onto the ground by the impact. Damn it, he cursed as he picked himself up. The Annihilator stood over him and raised its foot to stomp on him. Suddenly, Hawk came out of nowhere and landed a hit on the Annihilator, sending it reeling. Hey, need some help? Hawk asked cockily. Mind your own business, Sasuke told him as he rose to his feet, massaging his right wrist out of habit. We have to take that thing down. You're eager, Hawk observed. Aren't you? Sasuke countered as he charged right back into the fight. Hawk just watched Sasuke leap into the air, preparing for round 2. Show off! Hawk shouted at him in a sort of friendly banter. He then noticed the Annihilator get back up and begin trudging towards him. Oh! Hawk made a run for it as the Annihilator chased after him, slowly gaining on him. Sasuke was about to try another jutsu when he felt a gust of wind blow right past him. Looking forward, he saw Wonder Woman flying ahead, heading straight for the Annihilator. As Hawk ran, he scurried onto a pile of bricks and boulders. Picking up one boulder, he hurled it at the Annihilator's head, knocking it back just a bit. As it regained its footing, it was instantly swept into the air by Wonder Woman, who flew at it from behind, grabbing it by its leg and lifting it high into the air. She then spun it around and then, using the momentum of her spinning, flung the Annihilator into a tower which crumbled on top of it, burying it in a pile of rubble. Hawk ran away from the pile of bricks and came to a stop, Wonder Woman and Sasuke coming to a landing on either side of him. As they looked on, they all got the shock of their lives as the Annihilator rose up from the rubble, apparently unharmed. Its faceplate was open, allowing the three of them to see nothing. It was completely empty. This surprised the three heroes even more and confused them somewhat. There's no one inside that thing, Hawk exclaimed, stating the obvious. How do you fight that? Wonder Woman just narrowed her eyes while looking at the walking suit of soulless armor. You hit it till it breaks, she said. The three of them then headed back into battle. As Hawk ran at it, and Wonder Woman and Sasuke charged towards it, the Annihilator grabbed a tank by its turret, and using it like a club, smacked the three heroes over into a busted wall, the three of them sliding down to the ground. Looking up while shaking the dizzies out of their heads, they noticed the Annihilator coming towards them with the tank raised above its head. Sasuke, acting quickly, used the fire release, Phoenix Flower Jutsu at it, but to no avail as the jutsu just bounced off of its armor. As Sasuke kept firing, Wonder Woman noticed the sunlight glint off of its armor and noticed a strange, but very familiar symbol. Acting quickly herself, she grabbed Hawk and moved the two of them away while Sasuke used the body flicker technique to get out of harm's way as the Annihilator slammed the tank down into the ground where they had only been seconds before. Looking at the pile of smoke that rose from the attack, both Hawk and Wonder Woman were joined by Dove, who looked on to see what would happen next. They got their answer as the tank came flying through the smoke cloud, nearly crushing them to death. Wonder Woman had acted quickly though, grabbing them both and flying away from the battlefield with Hawk protesting the whole time. They were joined in the air by Sasuke on his personal summon Garuda, and the four flew over to a ridge just beyond the outskirts of the town but high enough to give them a view of the carnage below. Landing on the ridge, Wonder Woman released Hawk and Dove and got a complaint from the more muscular brother. What are you doing? You just pulled us right out of battle, Hawk complained. She just saved our lives, Hank, Dove countered, coming to the defense of Diana's actions. 2 yards would have done that, rebutted Hawk. This is what's called a retreat. Enough, you would have been long dead already if it weren't for her, Sasuke shot back. Besides, the princess and I are the most powerful ones here, and even we weren't able to stop that thing. So, unless you got any better ideas on what to do next, then you had best shut up. Says you. All we did was turn tail and run away like a pack of wounded dogs, Hawk shouted. There was no point in continuing, Diana replied back calmly. Our attacks were having no effect on that thing. If anything, it's getting stronger. They looked on as the Annihilator, along with the North Kasnians, drove the forces of the South away with their superior power. There's gotta be a way to stop this war, Dove said. If we can just get the two leaders to sit down together. Oh, 'cause that happens all the time in these situations, Hawk replied. I believe we're beyond that option at this point, added Sasuke. Well, unless you just want to kidnap them and make him talk, said Hawk, adding on to his last statement. I wish, said Dove, ready to try and do anything that could help stop this war peacefully. Then go for it, Diana replied. At least it'll buy me some time. Well, if you have a plan to stop that thing, I'm all for it then, Sasuke added, willing to go along with Diana. Good, because we'll need all the time we can get, said Diana. Why? What are you doing? Asked Hawk. Diana looked up to the sky. I gotta see a man about a suit of armor, was all she said as she took off, Sasuke following after her on Garuda. You know who made that thing? Sasuke stated. Yes, and if I know him, if he made it, he'll know how to stop it, said Diana. Sitting in his office back at the Northern Tribe's military base camp, Mr. Nardak, the man whom Ares had given the Annihilator to, was leaning back in his chair while taking a small break from leading his troops. Thinking of his next encounter with the Southern Tribe, he relaxed a bit while enjoying a cigar. He wouldn't get much of a chance to enjoy it fully though, as Mr. Sarah, who was actually Ares in disguise, came into his office. And he was not happy at all. He had expected death, destruction, chaos, war, genocide, and yet all he got was a few deaths and a lot of property damage from just the Annihilator alone. "You let them go," Mr. Serra said, none too thrilled with the current outcome of the battle. Nardak nearly fell out of his chair in startled surprise, his stogie falling onto his table. "Why didn't you push ahead and take their camp? They have enough arsenal there to launch an assault against the capital." "I have no designs of the capital," Nardak replied as he got up and walked from his desk and over to Mr. Serra. "We won, Mr. Serra. The animals attacked, and we ran them out of town." This answer did not sit well with him though, as it only served to infuriate him. His anger reaching its peak, Mr. Serra began to raise his voice. "I didn't give you the Annihilator so you could run your enemies out of town. I gave you the Annihilator so you could annihilate them." Nardak didn't like his tone but knew better than to try and get under Mr. Serra's skin. Moving back towards his desk, he leaned over and looked at a map of the country of Kesnia. "Forgive the insult, sir, but you think like a South Kesnian. They want to destroy us all but my brothers, and I only wish to keep our land." He crumpled the map in his hands, his own frustration growing. "Perhaps I could take their camp, but the price would be too great. Shall I win a country but massacre my people?" It was a valid argument but a pointless one. As he tried to reason with Mr. Serra, the man began to clench his fists at hearing such half-hearted talk about not wanting to do too much harm or cause too much damage to his country. To Mr. Serra, war was only good for one thing, and that was senseless battle and bloodshed. Enough to drive a man mad with the insane thirst to kill who or whatever crossed his path. "Yes, you idiot!" Mr. Serra shouted, losing his temper. "I think like a South Kesnian?" he asked, gesturing to himself before pointing to the wall, motioning that he meant everyone else outside room. "Has it even entered your skull that they think like South Kesnians? And you'd better start thinking that way too," he warned Nardak, lurching forward and getting in his face. "If you want there to be a northerner left in this rat-infested dirt heap you call a country, all you mortals are good for is to slaughter one another. To fight and fight until the bones of your enemies are strewn across the battlefield, only to rise again in the next generation, like a well-tended crop," he finished, sputtering a bit of spit in Nardak's face. "That's what the Annihilator is for. But no, you're using it to play tag," he continued, spitting in Nardak's face some more. Getting tired of Mr. Serra's ranting and insults, Nardak glared at him, rising up to meet him face level before walking away. "You know what, you're crazy, and I wash my hands of you," Nardak said, walking over to the door and opening it. "I'll thank you to get out of my rat-infested dirt heap now. And you can take your robot with you." Mr. Serra just gave him a dark yet blank glare until an idea clicked on inside his head. Wanting to move things along even further, Mr. Serra approached Nardak, his body covered in fiery energy as he assumed his true form, that of Ares, god of war. The sight of the transformation surprised Nardak as he slowly backed up against the wall, Ares himself preparing to take control. "Better idea I stay you go," Ares said. Back on the cliff overlooking the town, Hawk and Dove were currently discussing what to do. They were already set on what kind of plan they wanted to do, but they were still figuring out who should go to which military camp. It took them a few minutes, but after a civil discussion, which involved a lot of shouting on Hawk's part, they decided that Dove would go to the camp for the northern tribe and Hawk would go to the camp of the southern tribe. They both ran off, hoping that their plan either worked or helped in buying Diana just enough time until she and Shinobi got back. Of course, nothing ever went as planned. Within the realm of the Greek pantheon, Hephaestus was busy working on a new piece of work which looked like a new throne with lions' heads set at the forward ends of the armrests. As he worked on the throne, using his hammer to pound the chisel into the metal areas so as to accentuate the details, Sasuke and Diana both flew down to the ground, landing gently so as to try and not disturb Hephaestus. They didn't go unnoticed though, as he could easily sense that they were there. Looking back, he gave them a quick look before turning fully around to face them, looking directly at Diana. "I made that armor for your mother. Did she ever thank me?" "No," Hephaestus said as he looked Diana up and down. "I love your mom, but she doesn't have your build." "I didn't come here to talk about my armor," replied Diana with an almost emotionless look on her face. Hephaestus just stared at her, and then looked over at Sasuke. "No, I guess not." "And what about you?" he asked Sasuke. "What about me?" Sasuke asked sarcastically. "Why are you here? For that matter, what strange eyes you have. Are you some kind of demon in human skin that Hades let loose on the mortals?" Sasuke's expression remained stoic, much to the Smith god's disappointment. "I'm here to talk about an armored suit that needs no wearer and bears your mark," Diana explained, ignoring the fact that Hephaestus just insulted her friend. "The Annihilator," Hephaestus said aloud. "Then you did make it," said Diana as she moved forward a bit. "Who else does such fine work?" Ares liked it, Hephaestus spoke, giving away the name of the being behind the reason that the Annihilator was currently in the realm of man. Ares, of course, Diana concluded. How do you stop it? You knew to ask, Hephaestus replied, lumbering over to Diana as he wiped his hands clean with a cloth. I do leave a small weakness in each of my creations. An Achilles heel, if you will. It's so no one ever gets too powerful. You know what they say, only Zeus is perfect. And what's the Annihilator's weakness? Demanded Diana. They didn't have time for idle chit-chat. Diana, you wouldn't want me to go around telling people the weakness in your armor, would you? He mused. He quickly found himself being kicked by Sasuke into a wall where he pulled him close and pointed his sword to the god's neck. Enough of this, we don't have all day, Sasuke said sternly as he activated his Rinne Sharingan. Now you're going to tell us what we want to know, or so help me, I'm going to. Or you'll do what? Hephaestus challenged, catching Sasuke off guard. Looking the Uchiha right in the eyes, it's because of that exact reason why you can't beat the Annihilator. Not to mention why you have such a huge chip on your shoulder, ninja man. This made Sasuke raise his eyebrow in slight confusion and shock. How do you? I'm a god, son, Hephaestus reminded him. Not much happens in the mortal realm without us knowing about it. Besides, you and your blonde fox friend have been here for months now, so it's only natural that we would have learned about the both of you sooner or later. Hephaestus wore a grin as Sasuke set him down. So much ruthlessness. Enough games, Hephaestus, Diana ordered. How do we defeat the Annihilator? Hephaestus just let out a sigh. After what I just told your friend here, I figured you would have realized the answer by now. Diana had finally had enough as she grabbed Hephaestus by the throat before tossing him into the side of his workstations, which was set up next to a pair of rotating gears. Rushing over to him, Diana lifted him up and held him there, cocking her fists back in anger as she prepared to beat the answer out of him. She was tired of playing around, and she was not having a good day. If aggression was the only way to get the answers she wanted, then she'd use it to get them. With that attitude, you'll never figure it out. Diana just glared at him before lowering her arm and dropping Hephaestus to the floor. Diana then walked back over to Sasuke, the two of them taking off into the air. As they left, Hephaestus just watched them go but gave each of them a parting remark. Come back when you have more time. I'll let that suit out a little, he told Diana before looking at Sasuke. And as for you, learn to open up a bit. A little socialization never hurt anyone. Watching them leave, he then went back to his work, picking up his hammer and chisel and continued with the throne. Having seen Diana and Sasuke come to him for help, he knew his Annihilator was doing good work, but even he knew that what Ares had planned could not bear fruit. If it did, then all of mankind would be doomed. But he had faith in them. He knew they would eventually figure out the Annihilator's weakness. He just gave them a little nudge in the right direction. Back in Khaznia, with it now being a nighttime but close to sunrise, Dove was sneaking around the base of the northern military camp, looking for the building used by the group's leader. He didn't know which one it was yet, but he knew that if he could find the one with most guards, it would turn out to either be the building housing their leader or an ammo supply shed. Pressing his back against the wall, he rounded the corner slowly, keeping his eyes peeled for guards. He couldn't afford to get caught. Not at this stage of the mission. Preparing to enter one building, he noticed a few guards leave their posts except for one over at another building across the yard. That seems like it could do as a small base of operations for a military leader, he thought as he quickly, using his enhanced speed, made a dash for the building, sticking to the shadows. Keeping close to the wall, he came next to the entrance but quickly noticed a lone guard come out from the building. Having been spotted, Dove moved in quickly from around the corner, knocking the gun out of the man's hands before placing his hand over his mouth and face, cutting off his air supply while using other hand to keep the man still. He could not afford to get caught again. If their plan was to succeed, he would need to make sure that this guard fell unconscious and fast before he was spotted. Sorry kid, you'll have a headache later, Dove apologized. But on the bright side, if this works, you'll live to see 20. Placing the young man down on the ground, he ran through the entrance, heading towards the door. Quietly opening the door, he noticed a man standing there with his arms behind his back, looking at a map of Khaznia. Moving in quietly, he slowly came behind the man, who looked like Mr. Nardak. Hearing the sounds of footsteps, Nardak began to turn around only for Dove to stop and hold his hand up in a sign of peace. Don't be afraid. My name is Dove, he told Nardak. I'm not here to hurt you. Nardak just looked at him, as if he wasn't afraid at all. I'd like you to come with me. It's time to try a new path. And what path is that? Nardak asked. Peace. Nardak developed a sinister and devilish grin. Not really my thing. He then surprised Dove as his body was covered in fiery energy, transforming him into the form of that of Ares, standing now a full head taller than Dove. But if you're into it, I can arrange for you to have eternal peace. He then stalked towards Dove, an evil gleam in his eyes. After I'm done with you, that is. Over in the military base camp of the Southern Tribe, Hawk was busy doing his part of the plan. Using his speed, he moved through the shadows, making sure as to not get caught, as he moved towards the building which housed the general of the Southern military. Sneaking into the general's room, he quietly made his way over to the cot where the man slept. The general, while sound asleep, was not a heavy sleeper. Waking up slowly, he was startled to see the form of Hawk standing above him, looking down at him while grinning and reaching out with his hand. Ever run away from home? Hawk asked playfully. It's fun, you'll love it. Brother and me used to do it all the time, he said as he quickly bound and gagged the general, hefting him over his shoulder and carrying him towards the door. Except he'd always wuss out and run home to mama. Before he could even make it to the door, the ground began to shake as sounds of gunfire and explosions rang throughout the air. Deciding that whatever was happening outside was much more important, Hawk set the general down and made his escape. As the base was under attack, a couple of soldiers came into the general's quarters to inform him of the attack, but were both surprised to see their leader bound and gagged and squirming on the ground, begging to be set free. Outside, the sun began to slowly rise as daybreak approached. Hawk ran across the base, using his speed to give him enough momentum to jump up and over the barbed wire coiled gate, landing on the other side before continuing to run to the battlefield. Coming to a stop next to a group of trees, he noticed the battle intensifying as machine gun fire, tank fire and hand-to-hand combat ensued on the battlefield. Some soldiers were using rocket launchers to take out the tanks, and some even used combat knives and bayonets to take out their enemies. Hawk just watched it all with his arms crossed over his chest, not at all thrilled or entirely surprised at the outcome. I see Dawn's social skills had their usual effect, he complained until he saw something he never expected. Marching into battle, leading troops of the Northern Tribe was the Annihilator, and tied to its front was none other than Dove, who was struggling to break free. Seeing his brother bound to the killer suit of armor, enraged Hawk, who ran across the battlefield, the explosions just barely missing him as he quickly closed the gap between the Annihilator and himself. Jumping out of the way of more gunfire, Hawk jumped up and onto the Annihilator, gripping it by the head as he tore the rope that bound Dove to its body. Dove fell to the ground and watched as Hawk wrestled with the Annihilator while the battle between the North and South. One soldier, after firing off a magazine, looked over to his right to see a man wearing a suit of silver armor backhanding a few soldiers away from him with ease as he carried a long broadsword in his right hand. It was Ares, and he had come to personally see that the two military groups tore each other apart, and that the war would continue. He continued to move forward, looking around with a big grin on his face as he admired the carnage around him. With the Annihilator, Hawk held on for dear life until it grabbed him, throwing him down hard into the ground before picking him up and throwing him across the field, back first into a tree. Hawk let out a loud grunt as he fell to the ground, pushing himself up on his hands and knees. He watched as the Annihilator shifted its attention from him to the military base over across the distance. Hawk, none too happy with being blown off like that, ran after the Annihilator with Dove following after him. Hawk jumped over fallen bodies as more soldiers shifted over to hand-to-hand combat. As Hawk raced after the Annihilator, Dove stopped on the hill, noticing more tanks coming onto the field. As the battle intensified, both Wonder Woman and Sasuke finally returned, with the latter riding on Garuda above as they watched the battle. "This isn't good," Sasuke said. "You're right," replied Wonder Woman. "Any sign of Ares?" Taking a moment to look around, Sasuke suddenly spotted the god of war fighting off a group of soldiers without even trying. "Is that him?" Sasuke asked, pointing at the scuffle. Diana looked over to where Sasuke was pointing at and nodded her head to confirm. "Yeah, that's him." She then looked at Sasuke. "Listen, I'll try to get these people to stop fighting. You go and see if you can stall Ares." "Right," said Sasuke before taking off to do battle with the god of war. Watching him leave, Diana then flew down to the ground as soldiers and tanks rolled across the battlefield, bullets soaring through the air. Landing, she quickly used her bracelets to start blocking incoming bullets, deflecting them with expert skill as more soldiers ran past her from behind. She knew that she had to stop the fighting, knowing that she couldn't let Ares have his way. Blocking more bullets, deflecting them with her bracelets, Diana shouted and tried to reason with the soldiers. "Lay down your arms. You're being used," she shouted as she made her way across the battlefield. She was almost sent flying when a mortar shell hit the ground behind her, exploding and nearly causing her to fall to the ground. As the smoke cleared, she looked ahead to see the fighting escalating even more and began to wonder if they could stop all the fighting before the war got even worse. As Wonder Woman dealt with her own portion of the battle, Dove also looked on and knew that this battle had to end. Racing across the battlefield, he came to a stop next to a man who just pulled the pin out of a grenade and prepared to throw it at enemy soldiers. The man, trying to throw the grenade, soon felt a firm grip on his hand and looked to see Dove holding the hand with the grenade closed. "Wouldn't," Dove said. The man looked at him, then at the pin before sliding it back into the hole, resealing the grenade so it wouldn't go off. Dove, using his thumb, bent the pin, making the grenade unusable any further. "Have a nice day," he said before racing off. As the fighting continued, Ares watched with great interest. He enjoyed the carnage and the bloodshed and watched as the Annihilator gave him what he wanted, and that was war itself. He could easily see Wonder Woman, Hawk and Dove trying to stop the battle, but it would be futile in the wake of the Annihilator. "What fools these mortals be," Ares said to himself before he was sent soaring across the ground, grunting loud in pain as he was struck by a torrent of powerful flames to his back. "I swear, whoever in the hell just did that shall forever." "Chidori!" Sasuke shouted as he got right in Ares' face and slammed his Chidori into his armored chest. Ares staggered backwards as the electricity coursed throughout his body before rubbing his chest. The god of war then smirked at the Uchiha. "Ah, now I see, it's the mortal from the alternate universe," Ares jested before rushing at Sasuke, bashing his fist into Sasuke's chest. Ares hurled him into a cliff wall with tremendous force, the Uchiha's body smashing right through the stone. Sasuke groaned in pain as he climbed out of the hole. He looked up to see Ares shoot him a look of bemusement. Interesting. You are far more resilient than any other mortal I've encountered, but I can also sense a sort of divine power within you," said Ares. Already he could think of what kind of war and destruction this mortal would bring about if Ares took him under his wing. Sasuke used his fire release to launch a fireball into Ares' face, the ball of flames exploding and sending the god of war staggering. Jumping up, Sasuke used an uppercut that crashed into Ares' chin, sending him reeling further back. Ares, as a god, recovered and cracked his neck and knuckles. He threw a punch at Sasuke, who jumped to avoid it as he leaped backwards to make some distance. Once at a proper distance, he threw many kunai and shuriken coated with chakra at the advancing god of war. "Damn, what is this man made of?" cursed Sasuke in frustration as he didn't seem to be doing any damage. "As powerful as you might believe you are, mortal. You are no match for me," mocked Ares. As a god, he felt superior to all other lesser beings, and even if this mortal was technically superior to humans, he was just a gnat in comparison to the Olympian gods. "His godly physiology is able to take the brunt of my attacks, huh? That means normal ninjutsu won't be enough. I have my genjutsu, but if he is stronger than normal superhumans, I will need a very powerful one," Sasuke thought as his eyes turned into the Manjiki Sharingan. Sasuke leaped at Ares as he looked the god of war in the eye. Everything around Ares turned black and white. "An illusion?" Ares questioned when he suddenly spotted an army of Sasuke's holding a sword each. Suddenly Ares' arms were trapped in a hold as well as his legs. The Sasuke's approached him and proceeded to stab him repeatedly in the arms, legs, and chest. "With my Manjiki Sharingan, I can cast you in a powerful genjutsu," the Sasuke said in unison as they kept stabbing Ares over and over again for hours. Ares clenched his fist in pain and let out small grunts of pain. "Ugh! Gah! Oh!" Ares screamed in pain when he suddenly began to power up his godly power. Everything around him began to crack, as everything vanished. Ares looked around to see that everything was back to normal. "That was a little too close, I must admit." "He broke free? How?" Sasuke questioned. He was surprised by this. It may not have been the Tsukuyomi since he was only stalling his opponent. But it was still a powerful genjutsu. Usually one would need to be the level of a high-ranked ANBU or even a Kage to break free from that kind of genjutsu. But then again, this is a so-called god I'm dealing with after all. "You impudent, little how dare make a fool out of me, dash, dash." Ares roared as he charged at Sasuke, drawing his sword to split him in half. Sasuke flew up to avoid the sword and then came down performing a flying drop kick that knocked Ares onto his back. Next, with his Rinnegan eye trained on the Greek god, he surged forward with a Shinra Tensei to end this fight in his favor. Ares, seeing the attack coming, countered as he summoned forth his godly powers and let loose a blast of energy at the Shadow Hokage. Both attacks slammed against one another, pushing and fighting for dominance. After a moment, Sasuke was able to push through and soared at Ares. However, he soon learned that he was nothing more than a painfully irritating annoyance to Ares. His fist made contact with Ares' face, but the god of war gripped Sasuke's wrist and then smashed the Uchiha to the ground. Ares then lifted Sasuke up and took hold of his face. Lightning then flickered around Sasuke. Chidori Nagashi. Sasuke span around as the god of war was electrocuted by the wave of lightning. "Arg!" Ares screamed in pain. Sasuke then performed a sweep kick, knocking Ares off his feet. He began to go with a hit-and-run tactic as Ares climbed to his feet. He jumped and struck Ares across the face from the right, coming back to strike him from the left. He then unleashed a stream of fire that formed a circle of flames around the god of war, and with his fire release, Dragon Flame Bomb, formed a vortex of flames shaped like a dragon around Ares. The vortex of flames was violently dispersed as Ares shouted out, throwing his arms to the side. The flames had done some damage, but not very significant. Sasuke cursed under his breath. Damn it, gods were really on a whole different level entirely. Being immortal, they couldn't be killed except with specialized weapons. Their bodies were even more durable than humans. It seemed like the Uchiha had his work cut out for him. It seemed like he would need to really cut loose this time. That was when he unleashed the Susanu's full form, as if the entity itself responded to his desire. His desire to beat Ares and put this arrogant fool in his place. Sasuke then attacked with a backhand that knocked Ares to the side violently, nearly breaking his ribcage, which caused him to cough up a puddle of blood, and sending the god of war spinning. The perfect Susanoo landed and skidded to a halt, kicking up dust. With a swipe of its sword, the large samurai projection fired a furious barrage of lightning bolts at Ares. Ares had to shield his face as he gritted his teeth in agony. Then, moving at inhuman speed, Sasuke closed the distance and executed a painful uppercut into Ares' jaw before following up with a reverse roundhouse, hitting the god of war in the chest. He then attacked with a bicycle kick before performing a backflip kick, knocking Ares to the ground, which was all the more painful with Susanoo performing all of those strikes. Sasuke landed on his feet as he relinquished the Susanoo, and he heard Ares chuckle before letting out full-blown laughter. He gave Ares a confused look as the god of war threw his head back before he began to calm down and massage his jaw. He gave the Uchiha a wild yet evil look, and Sasuke noticed something in his eyes. It looked like fire. A fire of excitement. Yes, yes, Ares shouted, causing Sasuke to actually look at him with a worried glare. It seems that you have gone insane, Sasuke noted as Ares looked at him. I don't think I hit you hard enough. Oh, believe me, you have just proven yourself worthy of death at my hands, Ares gloated as he held his sword out to the side, fire surrounding the blade. Consider it an honor, boy. Is that so? I got your honor right here, Sasuke shouted as he put the combined powers of Amaterasu, Chidori, and the Susanoo into his blade. The two then jumped into the air, Ares using his godly abilities to keep himself aloft as the two clashed, their blades locked together, as they pushed against one another in a feat of strength. They then separated and vanished, their godly speeds allowing them to move faster than a normal human could even keep up with. The sky was filled with the sounds of thunderous clashes as they punched, kicked, and slashed at one another. Ares connected his sword against Sasuke's chest, causing blood to gush from his body. But Sasuke returned the hit in kind as he was able to stab Ares in the gut with his blade, cauterizing the wound with the intense heat from the Amaterasu. They both grunted in pain as they floated away from each other before vanishing again. The thunderous clashes could still be heard above the battlefield, but it did little to stop the fighting below. As the fighting for the other heroes continued, the Annihilator made its way towards the entrance to the southern tribe's camp. The soldiers defended themselves by firing everything they had at the soulless monster, but the bullets from their guns just bounced off of its body harmlessly as it got closer and closer. A couple of soldiers made a run for it from their jeeps as the Annihilator came too close. It then moved forward, walking between the jeeps, its body merely tossing them to the side. As it finally reached the gate, it was sent soaring by Hawk, who smacked it hard with a huge tree trunk, the latter using said trunk like a giant baseball bat. The Annihilator came down on top of a tank, crushing part of the machine under it. Luckily, the soldiers within it had escaped in time. Getting up, the Annihilator picked up the tank and threw it at Hawk, who ran out of the way. Upon smashing into the ground, the tank erupted in an explosion. As the Annihilator moved back towards the camp, the soldiers opened fire once more. The general also moved out to the front lines in his jeep, a soldier driving as the general readied his gun. They soon got more than they bargained for when they came to a sudden stop in front of the Annihilator, the soulless armor picking up the jeep and throwing the two men out onto the ground. Landing on his back with a thud, the general looked up at the sight of the Annihilator about to bring the jeep down on top of him. As the Annihilator slammed the jeep into the ground, the general was sparred in agonizing death, as he was grabbed by Dove and whisked a few yards away from the Annihilator. Standing back up, Dove watched as the Annihilator walked on past them, heading onwards towards the camp. As he was about to head out, he felt the general grab his arm. "Don't let them take the camp. Our arsenal," the general said before he was claimed by unconsciousness. Thinking about what the general asked of him, Dove then ran off to try one last tactic, hoping it would be enough to stop the Annihilator. Colliding with one another in the sky, the force of their powers exploded and sent both Sasuke and Ares falling to the ground, impacting the ground below them with a loud and dull thud. The two combatants lifted themselves out of the craters that their crashing bodies had formed and glared at one another. Ares had to shake out his head a bit as that last attack had made him a bit woozy. Sasuke took this as an opportunity to strike at Ares, trapping the god of war inside a Chibaku Tensei, using the gravitational core and the surrounding rubble. The meteor then began to fall from the sky, catching itself on fire in the process. Then, Sasuke surrounded himself in electricity and, with a Chidori in his hand, struck the falling sphere, resulting in an electrical explosion that was so powerful it could be seen even in space. A figure then was seen falling from the sky and crashed into the ground, forming a crater upon impact. Ares just laid there as he tried to regain his bearings with his armor now ruined, exposing his bare chest, which was now covered in many severe burns, bruises, and bleeding gashes. Just because your opponent wasn't a god didn't mean he couldn't pummel your ass into next week. If you know what's good for you, you'd stay down, Sasuke ordered as he watched the others do what needed to be done. As the fighting continued, a soldier fired an RPG, taking out a jeep and killing a few soldiers in the process. The remaining soldiers continued to fire at their enemies, Wonder Woman watching it all happen before her with a stern look on her face. Noticing one soldier opening fire on a group of others who were running, Diana headed over to him so as to get him to stop. "You must stop this," Diana told the man as she grabbed him by the shoulder. This angered the man who sneered at her. "I must do nothing," he argued as he brushed her hand away and aimed his gun at her. "I don't take orders from women," he stated as he knocked her across the face with the butt of his machine gun. This did very little in hurting her, as it had only served to piss her off even more. The man looked at her in fear as she turned and glared at him, a death glare. As he began to back away, she snatched his weapon from him and raised it above her head, preparing to use it like a club and bash his skull open. Looking at her in fear, the man couldn't even find it in himself to react properly. Her body trembling with rage, Diana looked down on the man and saw the fear in his eyes. She could feel her anger coursing throughout her entire body. That was when she realized what Hephaestus was trying to tell both her and Sasuke earlier. Her eyes widening as realization dawned on her, she lowered the gun before crumbling it up and handing it back to the man. "The Annihilator!" Diana called out as she ran towards Dove, who had stopped upon hearing her call out to him. "It's fueled by our rage." Hearing this, Dove changed his original tactic and ran over to stop the Annihilator in his own way. As the Annihilator made its way towards the camp, the last line of defense aimed their weapons at it, hoping that they could at least slow it down or actually stop it. As they took aim, Dove ran in front of them, standing between them and the ever-advancing Annihilator. A look of determination on his face, Dove had his arms held out to his sides as he of only one way that might make the Annihilator stop its attack. "Lower your weapons," Dove ordered. The soldiers ignored him for a moment, their eyes still trained on the advancing Annihilator. "You don't have a chance like that, so try it my way," he shouted while pointing his finger at them. "Lower your weapons." As the soldiers continued to hold their aim on the Annihilator, Dove turned around to face the oncoming brute. As it advanced towards him, Hawk ran to catch up and try to stop Dove from getting himself killed. "Don!" he shouted, but soon found himself stopped by both Sasuke and Diana, who held him back. Hawk struggled against their grip, fighting to free himself. "Let go of me. He's weak. He'll get himself killed," he pleaded with Sasuke and Diana. "Don dash dash." "Shinobi, go and stay next to Dove," Diana ordered. "If the Annihilator attacks, then take it down and get Dove out of there." "Of course, Princess," Sasuke replied as he sped off and over to Dove, landing next to him. "You sure this is going to work?" "Aggression isn't always the answer," was all Dove said as he just stood his ground. The two of them continued to look onward as the Annihilator closed the gap, coming to a stop before them. Both Sasuke and Dove just looked at it, and it looked back at them. Sasuke really wanted to destroy this thing, but if rage was its power source, then he would compromise and try it Dove's way. He just prayed that it actually worked. As it looked down at the two heroes, the Annihilator raised its arm, preparing to club the two beings standing before it, its height an extra 6 feet greater than their own as it towered over them. Dove and Aang just stared at the Annihilator, and the soldiers behind them, after a few tense moments, finally lowered their weapons. Sensing no more rage being directed towards it, the Annihilator lowered its arm as the unholy white light coming from the two slits on its faceplate faded away, the armor finally shutting down. Dove let out an exasperated sigh of relief and looked to Sasuke, who clapped him on the shoulder. "That wasn't a bad idea there, I have to admit," Sasuke complimented him, causing Dove to smile and nod. The rest of the soldiers gathered around, as did Hawk and Diana, the latter releasing her hold on the former. Walking up from behind the Annihilator, Hawk tried to wrap his brain around what just took place but couldn't begin to understand what was going on. Many of the soldiers were wondering the exact same thing. "Anyone want to give me a clue on what just happened?" Hawk asked his three teammates. Sometimes it takes more strength not to fight, was all Diana said. Dove smiling at her answer as Sasuke nodded in agreement. He himself had finally realized what Hephaestus tried to tell him. Of course, the peaceful moment was ruined when an enraged Ares limped over to the scene after finally regaining his bearings from his earlier bout with Sasuke. "What's the matter with you people, Dash? Keep fighting. This is your chance to finish them," he demanded, looking at all the soldiers around him.